And we will begin with a period of opening roll call led by Pro Tem Spur.
Howdy, y'all. The form should be open in just a second. Thank y'all for being patient and waiting for us. We were still in the 72nd meeting, and it took a little bit to wrap up. So we appreciate y'all waiting on us on that. And that link should be open. And I'm going to go ahead and leave the opening roll call open for the entirety of the meeting. So if people do come into the meeting late, we can know when they entered the meeting. So if you still haven't gotten to that form yet, don't worry, we're not going to close it because it timestamps when you filled it out. So we can go ahead and move on.
Fantastic. That will conclude our period of opening roll call, and we'll move into a period of invocation and pledges led by special guest Daniel Puckett. Daniel, are you with us?
Yes, sir.
Fantastic. Take it away.
Hi. Please bear with me. Dear God, you are a great and mighty God. You are powerful and loving and have given us all that we have. Thank you for the school we attend, the nation we live in, and our ability to learn and grow. Please help each of us to be wise and considerate as we grow in ability and knowledge. Father, you know the pandemic that grips our world. Please help us recover from it quickly. Please be with those who are sick and their families, help them to recover quickly. Please be with the medical staff who are caring for the patients and those who are searching for cures and vaccinations. Please be with the leaders in the United States, in Texas, in Brazos County, and at Texas A&M as they make decisions regarding the coronavirus. Help them to be wise and thoughtful. Please be with the Texas A&M Senate body as they are meeting today. Help them to stay healthy, help them to work diligently, and help them to make godly decisions. Father, I know that you love us and that you hear my prayer. Thank you for sending your Son, Jesus Christ, to die for us. It is in his name that we pray. Amen.
Thank you, Daniel. And if you will also lead us in the pledges of allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. And the pledge to the Texas flag. Honor the Texas flag. I pledge allegiance to thee, Texas, one state under God, one and indivisible.
Cool. I'm guessing that's my turn. Seeing as I'm unmuted. So the Texas A&M mission statement. The Texas A&M University Student Senate represents all students in order to enhance the Texas A&M experience within our university and communities through research, legislation, and advocacy in accordance with the core values of our institution. The Aggie Honor Code, and Aggie does not lie, cheat, or steal, or tolerate those who do.
Thank you, Senator Wood. We'll now move into a period of the singing of the Spirit of Aggieland led by Pro Tem Spur.
Give me just a moment, y'all. I'm going to share screen. Sorry, it's taking me just a second.
Fantastic. And with that, we will move into a period of open forum. Pro Tem Spur, did we have any respondents on the open forum list?
We did not for this meeting.
Well, then that will conclude our period of open forum. We will move into a period of approval of our 422 meeting minutes. We will move to approve these minutes by general consent. Do I see any objections? Seeing none, we have moved to approve our 422 minutes, and we'll now move into a period of judicial court justice confirmations. Just so you all know, the way this will work is pretty much exactly like the executive cabinet confirmations, except instead of having SVP Mendoza introduce our Chief Justice candidate, we have put together a judicial selections committee that had been going on over the past couple of weeks. And the leader of that committee is Chair Hine. And so I'll hand it over to Chair Hine to present and then hand it over to our nominee.
Awesome, thank you so much. I just want to start off by saying thank you so much to my subcommittee, Blake, Sophia, Michaela, Alexia, Colette, and Mega. Y'all have done an absolutely wonderful job in making sure that this fast-paced process got done, and it got done correctly in order to confirm, or to potentially confirm, our Chief Justice tonight. So Karissa, you'll have 5 minutes. I believe, or I understand that your presentation is in the drive. All right. Also, you'll also be able to find in the drive our subcommittee report, which includes our recommendation to the student body, as well as her answers to our interview questions. So if you'd like to take a look at that. But other than that, I'll hand it over to you, Karissa.
And Karissa, you'll have 5 minutes beginning at howdy.
All right. Howdy, Senate. My name is Karissa McIntosh, and I am a sophomore accounting major from Spring, Texas. Fun fact, so last fall, whenever I came in front of you guys for my Associate Justice confirmation, I told you that I was training for a half marathon, and since then I have actually completed 3. So if you're following along with my PowerPoint presentation, that first picture is me after my first race, and that second picture is me with my family, where my little brother actually ran the whole thing with me. So looking at my involvement with NSGA, I got involved on J-Court my freshman year. So whenever I came into A&M, I knew I wanted to be a part of something where I could just pour myself and my energy into it and see growth and see impact and be able to contribute to something bigger than myself. So whenever I first saw that judicial advocate application go out, I felt that it really aligned with my talents and my passions, and it was an amazing opportunity to be able to do that my freshman year. So this past year, I served as Vice Chief Justice under Shafali, and it was the most amazing opportunity I ever could have asked for. I learned more and grew more myself in that year than I ever could have imagined. And in this position, I was able to see the daily tasks and everything that being a Chief Justice entails. And I got to be there and work with Shafali as our court went through some big changes. And when we actually saw one of our first cases that we've seen in quite a few years. So that was a really special opportunity, and I really learned a lot through that. Outside of J-Court, I am also the secretary for the Pre-Law Society, and I work as a tutor for our student athletes here on campus. During this past fall semester, I had the opportunity to be a peer leader for a program called Freshman Business Initiative, where I got to help a group of freshmen make the transition from high school into Mays Business School. So if you're following along, that picture at the bottom is me with my group of freshmen, and they taught me a great deal about how to lead a group of people like that. So moving on to my judicial philosophy, I very much believe in judicial restraint and respect the separation of power between our 3 branches. I always say I didn't run to be a senator, I applied to be a justice, and I do believe that my job, I'm not here to write the rules, as there are other channels within our student body that are meant for that. There are other channels where the student body is represented and heard and where those changes are to take place, but that isn't within my branch, and that's not what I'm here to do. I'm here to make sure that the code is applied correctly and is applied fairly to everyone within student government. And this past year, actually, during our case, I got to really put those beliefs in my judicial philosophy to the test and be able to stand firm in those beliefs. When I authored the majority opinion along with some of my fellow justices, we wrote that looking at the way that the code was written, it was applied correctly, and that given everything that the code says, we didn't have the power to alter that no matter the circumstances. And I was really able to stand firm in my judicial philosophy there. So I think that just about covers it, and I'm open for questions.
Well, fantastic. The presenter is open for questions. And so with that, we'll open up to a period of Q&A that will last 5 minutes. If you do have a question, as a reminder, go ahead and utilize that raised hand tool on Zoom. That can be found by clicking the participants down at the bottom and then clicking raise hand down at the bottom of that list. Are there any questions for the presenter at this time? And I would like to remind the body that we are considering the confirmation of a head of one of the branches of our student government. And so I would encourage asking any questions that you may have at this moment. Chair Syed.
Chair Syed, Engineering Caucus. Ms. McIntosh, what was the case that you had this past session and how did you approach it?
So going into it, there was, I can't say too much, but it was definitely an emotional case. And the way that I had to go into that was, I saw everything that the case was going to be presented before I actually heard the case. So going in, I really took the time to sit down with myself and think through and recognize all of my preconceived notions and think through all of my thoughts beforehand. That way, whenever I was in the moment, I was able to evaluate how much of those thoughts I'd had beforehand and were preconceived notions and how much of it was genuinely pertinent to the case. And I was able to, take those same set of facts and apply it to multiple situations, see how, given a different circumstance, what would my opinion be the same? Would it be different? And just really take the time to give that case the attention and the deep thought and just sheer amount of time to work through all those thoughts that it deserved.
Thank you.
Are there any other questions for our presenter at this time? And seeing none, that will conclude our period of Q&A. Ms. McIntosh, I'm going to go ahead and move you into our waiting room as we go into a period of debate, and then I'll bring you right back. All right, Senate, we will now begin a period of debate. This will be a 5-minute period. We'll begin with debate against. Do I see any debate against? Again, please utilize the raised hand tool if there is. And seeing no debate against, that does make our debate one-sided and will conclude our period of debate. We'll now move into a period of voting on the confirmation of Karissa McIntosh to be our Chief Justice. That voting link is found on the agenda as well as in the Slack. The form can be found in the Drive under e-meeting resources. Senator Gunya put it into the Zoom chat for you to see how to get there on the Drive. If you have any questions or if that doesn't work, let us know in the chat. We're seeing the link may be closed there. Perfect. Right, it should be open at this point. If it's not open for you, go ahead and hit that refresh at the top of your browser and it should be open.
I'm going to give y'all like 1 more minute to get those votes in. All right, I'm going to go ahead and close that. Let's see here. With a vote of 49 for, 1 against, and 1 abstention, she has been confirmed.
Fantastic. I'll go ahead and bring her back in. And Ms. McIntosh, can you hear us? Are you back in?
Yes.
Fantastic. It is my pleasure to let you know that you have been confirmed to serve as our next Chief Justice of the Student Government Association of Texas A&M. Congratulations.
Thank you.
And for the last time, Chief Justice Chopra, would you please swear in our new Chief Justice?
Absolutely. Karissa, are you ready?
I'm ready.
Alrighty. Please raise your right hand. I state your name.
I, Karissa McIntosh,
Do solemnly swear
do solemnly swear
to faithfully execute to the best of my ability
to faithfully execute to the best of my abilities
the duties of the office of State Your Office
the duties of the office of Chief Justice
for the Texas A&M University Student Government Association,
for the Texas A&M University Student Government Association,
to uphold the honor of the same
to uphold the honor of the same
at all times, to protect the welfare of the student body,
at all times, to protect the welfare of the student body,
and to promote good relations between the students and those concerned with the university.
and to promote good relations between the students and those concerned with the university.
Congratulations.
Thank you.
Congratulations to our new Chief Justice, and thank you to our former Chief Justice. And we have appreciated you having you on here the past couple of months and getting everyone confirmed for us. We've appreciated that. With that, we'll now move into a period of executive cabinet confirmations, beginning with Operations Executive Vice President and considering Jacqueline Askew for that role. SVP Mendoza, you'll be unmuted and able to introduce our candidate.
Awesome. Well, howdy, Senate. First of all, congratulations to Chief Justice McIntosh now. So excited for you. And then also very quickly, echoing what Chair Hines said, thanking both her and her committee for quick work on that and work they're going to do in the future. But I'm so excited to introduce you to Jacqueline. She is no stranger to SGA. She has served in the previous cabinet and has shown, and I've seen just her capabilities and her diligence and everything that she does. I knew that there was no doubt, regardless of where, that she needed to be in my cabinet, that she had a home there. And I know this is the right place for her. She has worked in cabinet. She knows what the role entails, and she is more than capable. I know that I'm very excited for her to get to share her vision with you all. I know she's put a lot of effort into this, so I will turn it over to you, Jacqueline.
Great. Well, howdy, Senate. So as Eric just said, I'm Jacqueline Askew, class of 20, and soon to graduate, hopefully in the next few days or whenever the degree comes in the mail. I have been a biomedical engineering major for undergrad, and I am entering my grad school year in finance. So if y'all are following along on the slides, I am from San Diego, California, and I'm also a second-generation Aggie. So those pictures on the right-hand side are my parents, and they are actually such good Ags that they decided to come back every single fall year for football season. So they migrate, in a sense, from San Diego, and they join me every fall. And so that first picture was my freshman year, and then my ring day, and finally this past fall at the Arkansas game. So a couple of interests of mine is art, tennis, snow skiing, traveling, and sailing. So love to be active and trying to be as active as I can amidst this crisis, as I know we all are. Moving on, so my experience as Eric wonderfully said, and thank you, Eric, for that. That was very kind of the work that I have done with SGA this past year. Really enjoyed the role of VPMA, worked with the mayors and city councils to advocate for students' needs, and have been working and continue to help with the development of a website called Rate My Apartment, which is similar to Rate My Professor, but it'll be again, just for A&M students and for blend students to basically rate the different apartments around town, and so that we can get true feedback on that and know where we want to live rather than, just the ads or word of mouth. Also have been really working on advocating for the best housing for students possible by working with the A&M system on that and P3s. And then I kind of just restructured Gig the Vote in a sense. Hopefully for years to come, we put a lot of work into that this past year. Other than that, my campus involvement the past 4 years has been being a resident advisor for the past 3 years. Last year, I was vice president of Residence Hall Staff Council, which is basically like the SGA of RAs. And then I was involved with Purpose, which is childhood cancer, and I was on the event planning team for that, as well as build and undergraduate research. So my qualifications for this position, I really like to think of three big things: professionalism, understanding the student body, and big picture thinking and a problem solver. So professionalism, I kind of began medical research at the age of 12 and started a company at the age of 15, which kind of pushed me into learning how to be professional at a young age. I've learned the importance of networking through my internships the past few years, and this year within my master's program, I am the corporate and government finance guild leader, which is basically just the way that the older students in the program can help mentor the younger students within those different areas of finance. And then as for understanding the student body, as I mentioned earlier, I am out of state, and for the few students who are out of state, it is definitely an interesting experience coming to A&M, and that I wouldn't say necessarily culture shock, but even just coming to Texas, it's a different world. And then being a RA for the past 3 years, I've helped freshmen, transfer students, and international students transition to A&M and really finding their home in Aggie land. And then, as I mentioned, I will hopefully be graduating soon whenever that degree comes in the mail. And so I've had the undergraduate perspective on things and now the graduate student perspective on things. And then again, as for big picture thinking and problem solving, I've just really have been working on those things as an engineer and just through different problems that we all have to deal with in life and also within the SGA world. So my vision and values for this position. So my values, my favorite core value is loyalty, and that's just because my parents had taught me the loyalty to A&M and the loyalty to family and all those things at a very young age. And any way that we can get back, we should. And, once an Aggie, always an Aggie. As for my vision for not just my position, but for all of SGA, or at least all of its cabinet, is really working on better communication, collaboration, and advocacy. So for my role specifically, communication and collaboration, I really want to work on those things within the SGA committees.
And
as we
Jacqueline,
have so many things.
as that is the amount of time that we have allotted for presentation, if you please finish up your presentation within a sentence or two.
Yes, of course.
I'm actually going to have to pause you one more time. I'm so sorry. I do have a motion. I'd like to recognize Chair Feldman. Chair Feldman, you are recognized.
Chair Feldman, Legislative Relations. I motion to extend the period of presentation by 2 minutes.
There is multiple seconds to extend the period of presentation by 2 minutes. Do I see any objections to doing this by general consent? Seeing no objections, we will extend the period of presentation by 2 minutes. Jacqueline, it is all back to you.
Great, thank you so much for that extension of time. So I really want to work on communication and collaboration through committees as well as across campuses, across the campus and through the different colleges with college student councils for a more unified voice, as well as just expanding involvement across the campus through committees and college student councils, because I think we really need to, we have so many different things going on, and we have so many things that can improve campus, as we have already done these past few years and continue to do every year, that we need to have more of a unified voice to work smarter and not as hard. So again, effective collaboration and advocacy for committees, as those committees need to be heard. And I have had the pleasure of advocating for students within our municipals this past year, so I would like to do the same for the committees. And of course, SGA code compliance and rules and regs is very important in this role. All right, that is my presentation, and happy to take any questions.
Presenter is open for questions. A reminder, if you do have any question, go ahead and use that raise hand tool on Zoom. Are there any questions for the presenter at this time? Chair Feldman.
Chair Feldman, Legislative Relations. Just based off of all your prior work and all your prior qualifications, what do you think prepared you the most for this position?
I think this past year, of course, doing all the different things with MA was really important to understand how to have a lot of projects going on and doing it efficiently and doing it with great speed. But specifically related to that, I was overseen by Paige last year, who was the VP of Ops. And she has done a phenomenal job, and I have learned so much from her. And just seeing how she's handled the position day in and day out, I think has prepared me the best.
Thank you.
Are there any other questions for the presenter? Seeing none, that will conclude our period of Q&A, and we will move into a period of debate. Jacqueline, I'm going to go ahead and move you into the waiting room, and then I'll bring you back once debate and voting has finished. With that, Senate, we will begin our period of debate, beginning with debate against. Do I see any debate against at this time? A reminder, to debate against or for at any point, please use the raised hand tool on Zoom. Seeing no debate against, though, that will conclude our period of debate, as debate is one-sided. We'll now move into a period of voting led by Pro Tem Spur.
Howdy, y'all. That form should soon be open, if not already. And you'll find that in the 73rd Student Senate. You'll go into elections, then you'll go to top staff confirmations, you'll click nominees, and then it will say Jacqueline's name and then the OEVP ballot. And that is already open, so y'all will have until 8:25 to fill that form out.
A reminder, if you're having trouble navigating the drive at all, there is also the link posted in the agenda as well as in Slack. So you can find it in both of those places as well if the drive is not working. If you don't have problems with any of that, then feel free to tell us in the chat so we can get that resolved and make sure we calculate your vote.
Perfect, and y'all have got just a few more seconds, and then I'm going to go ahead and close. Okay, we're going to go ahead and close with a vote of 49 for, 3 in abstention, and 1 against. She will be confirmed.
Fantastic. I'll bring her back in now. Jacqueline, are you back with us?
I am.
Well, fantastic. It is my pleasure to let you know that you have been confirmed to serve as our next Operations Executive Vice President for the SGA of the Texas A&M University. Congratulations.
Thank you.
Chief Justice McIntosh, you will be unmuted and able to swear her in.
All right. Raise your right hand. I state your name.
I, Jacqueline Askew,
Do solemnly swear
do solemnly swear
to faithfully execute to the best of my ability
to faithfully execute to the best of my ability
the duties of the office of, state your office,
the duties of the office of Executive Cabinet
for the Texas A&M University Student Government Association,
for the Texas A&M University Student Government Association,
to uphold the honor of the same
to uphold the honor of the same,
at all times to protect the welfare of the student body,
to at all times uphold the welfare of the student body,
and to promote good relations
and to promote good relations
between the students and those concerned with the university.
between the students and those concerned with the university.
Congratulations.
Thank you.
Congratulations, Vice President Askew. With that, we will now move into a period of considering the confirmation of Rebecca Lee to be our next development candidate. And then I will over to you to introduce our candidate.
Wonderful. Thank you again, Speaker McHugh. Congratulations, Jacqueline. Extremely excited to work with you. So Rebecca Lee is someone who is no stranger as well to SGA. She has served on the Development Commission throughout this last year. I think the Development Commission used to be someplace that did one or two things and kind of wrote out the year. In this past year, I think they've done an incredible job and taken incredible initiative. And so by no surprise to me, I was blown away by her interview and the ideas that she's bringing to the table. It doesn't hurt that I think she's one of the smartest people I've ever met and far capable of more things than I ever could be. But Rebecca is someone that can do this job, I think, just as good as ever been done before. And I'm excited because it's a year that we need it done to a high level more than ever before. So I will turn it over to Rebecca. I also want to encourage everyone to follow along on the Google Drive to her presentation, which is on your drive. Thank you all.
And Rebecca, you will have 5 minutes beginning at howdy, and I'll put time updates in the chat.
Howdy, Senate. Thank you so much for that kind introduction, SVP Mendoza. So I'll kick it off with an introduction of myself. I come from Spring, Texas. Obviously go to Texas A&M pursuing an undergraduate in accounting and a master's in finance. That is where sort of Eric and I got to know a little more about each other, about our ambitions within finance. And so I'm definitely very excited to be here today applying to the Development Commissioner role. Fun fact before I kick off is that I'm born in Quincy, Massachusetts. I have a lot of close ties with the Northeast. A lot of my family, friends and family are based out of there. Hopefully this summer I'll be returning to the Northeast in New York, well previously hopefully, but I guess within the next year or so, after this all blows over, I will be in New York. So moving on to the next slide. So I wanted to sort of condense this a little bit for everyone. Development Commission, our main goal is to grow the Sga Endowment, right? And so the Sga Endowment was first created in 2007 with the Path to Success BRIC campaign. And so my main goal as Development Commissioner will come out of the experiences that I have been very, very lucky to accumulate over my college years. So starting off with Mays Business School, I was very excited to be the co-director for our Horizons Finance Guild. And there we did a lot of resume reviews, conducted mock interviews. This year we actually spearheaded a conference call that invited all the finance organizations within Mays Business School to listen in on idea generation and how to move out of this period of confusion. We tied in Aggies on Wall Street as well as Aggie Investment Club to sort of help consult where exactly to take the organization moving forward during a period of uncertainty and a lot to learn. And so I guess moving into student government association and sort of how that ties in with my experiences in Mays, my main goal, as I previously said, is to grow the endowment. As we all know, the predicament that we're sitting in, the macro economy looking ahead of us, there's a lot of confusion. And quite frankly, I think that you're looking for a candidate who is going to be a natural idea generator, someone who has delved herself into experiences to meet people across the campus, look for opportunities not only to grow the finances, but to grow really the scalability of student identification, whether that be in the business school, whether that would be across in the engineering school, through liberal arts, through our various science programs. And so what I'm hoping to do as development commissioner, if confirmed, is to eventually execute sort of a virtual platform where we can grow our fund through virtual profit shares. I'm actually doing this with a few of my organizations right now. I won't tie into that too deeply. Feel free to ask questions later on. But I think virtual profit shares is a big push for us. Another thing on my service for Development Commission last year, as you see in the slides, I served as the Donor and Relations Chair and was previously promoted to Chief of Staff in the spring semester. And so a lot of my responsibilities tied into communicating to SGA alumni, but alumni across the board. And so I would definitely say that a lot of my aspirations moving forward is to tie in those alumni donors and really build our fund through those communications. I believe that that will be a big difference maker for the Mendoza presidency and the wider student body. Moving on to my second page, just a little bit about my professional experience. So I mentioned that I was going to work in New York, at least had intended to this summer. So I will be working for the investment banking division at Bank of America. Very excited for that. Last summer, I worked at the New York Mortgage Trust, which is a real estate investment trust. Very in tune with a lot of very interesting markets-oriented concepts within finance. And then I had a previous legal pre-law career, I would say, in which I worked at a criminal law firm. Would be happy to answer any questions regarding those experiences as well. I'm going to skip over to, I would say, the most important slide, my vision and my values. I know you touched on this a little bit, but really the biggest job last year when I was working with the previous development commission.
I'm going to have to step in and pause you for just a second. We have a motion from Senator Farrow. Senator Farrow, you are recognized.
Senator Farrow, Engineering Caucus, I move to extend the period of presenting by 2 minutes.
Seeing multiple seconds, we will move to extend the period of presenting by 2 minutes. Do I see any objections? Seeing none, then by general consent, we have moved to extend the period of presentation by 2 minutes. Rebecca is back on you.
Thank you for the extension. So back to the vision and values. I know I touched a little bit about my forward-going plan with the Sga Endowment. To give you a bit of a background, the current endowment is sitting between 300 and 400,000. This has been a lot of hard work, a lot of blood, sweat, and tears from every individual on the Development Commission team. And so the past development commissioner, Cale Soutelier, and the previous chief of staff, Brady Burns, had a wonderful leadership in which we were able to really create ideas, one of them being the Aggie Munch card for students to really find deals across campus and to maximize on their dining experience on and off campus. And the second one being the golf tournament, where we invited alumni who were previously serving in student government senate, as well as just wide scale across the campus. Obviously, due to the current conditions, we had to cancel both. I was very heartbroken for that, but that gave me a lot more of visibility as to how I want to move forward. My values tie into really how I want to build my team. So that's first day as development commissioner, is really looking for a chief of staff who will be supportive in the SGA initiative, as well as someone who's well connected. And so with that, you have to be able to serve without having some kind of sort of self-interest within that. Selfless service is probably one of the most important values that I have, and it's something that can only be really seen out of individuals who have extreme humility, who have a lot of characteristics like many of the people I see on this call right now. And integrity and I tied in grit with that primarily because a lot of the development.
Unfortunately, that does conclude the amount of time we have. If you'd finish up in a sentence or two.
Yeah, certainly. So with these values and with my vision, I hope to really bring in a strong semester with the Development Commission. Thank you.
The presenter is open for questions at this point. We will now move into a period of Q&A. Are there any questions for the presenter at this time? Chair Syed.
Chair Syed, Student Services Committee. So my question is, as you said that you want to increase the amount of money that SGA has, what would you say is a successful amount of money to increase that SGA?
So definitely a great question specifically for any finance guru, I guess. So I would definitely say my goal is 2% of our current endowment. So around 400,000 if we're being very ambitious here. $8,000 is my goal. That is for the fall semester. That is through virtual platforms. Now, if we, assuming got back on campus, everything is great, sort of adjusting to student life, hopefully I would grow that by 5%. This is typically going to tie in the golf tournament as well as perhaps a few other ideas that I've been speaking with the previous commissioner. So,
thank you.
And Chair Ahmed.
Chair Ahmed, Diversity and Inclusion. So in your presentation, you highlight how you want to use like an advised allocation of $20K to the new development campaign. So is your goal to like use that 20,000 in development in your development commission and campaign, and through that raise the 2% and the 5% that you want to raise in our overall endowment?
Yeah, so as with any revenue generated for an endowment, there are expenses that are matched to it. So there will be some expenses that might have to incur for SG as a whole, but obviously my job is not to allocate that. My job is to grow that. And so I do want to stress that I am interested in growing the endowment, and I merely advise the allocation of $20K to help us sort of get a kickstart. The BRIC campaign was actually kickstarted off of a major expense to grow it to 300 to 400K that we see today.
And Senator Rogers.
Senator Rogers, Off-Campus Caucus. You mentioned you had previous experience with virtual profit shares. Would you please just elaborate on what that looked like? Thank you.
Yeah, so I'm also involved in the Legacies Women organization on campus. We've been actually having a lot of virtual profit shares within this past spring semester. So it's supporting a lot of the small businesses around the Bryan College Station community. One of the biggest I guess, events that I've been very involved in and excited to be involved in. And I definitely think we can tie in SGA in regards to bringing in those local businesses. So.
Are there any other questions for our presenter at this time? Seeing none, that will conclude our period of Q&A, and we'll move into a period of debate and voting. Rebecca, I'm going to go ahead and move you into that waiting room and then bring you back.
Sounds good.
All right, Senate, we'll now move into a period of debate, beginning with debate against. Again, if you do have any debate against or for at any time, please make use of that raised hand tool. So beginning with debate against, do I see any debate against? And seeing none, debate is one-sided, and that will conclude our period of debate. We'll move into a period of voting led by Pro Tem Spur.
All right, y'all, Brogan went ahead and shared that in the group. That form should be open, so I'm going to go ahead and give you until 8:42 to go ahead and fill it out.
They are working on that. If you're having trouble finding it through the link, go ahead and go to the 73rd drive and then go through the steps that Brogan had posted in there. Go into elections, executive cabinet confirmations, and then development commissioner. You should see a ballot there. If that drive does not work, hang with us and we will see what the issue with the link is. But if you have any trouble finding it on the drive, let us know. Is there anyone still in the process of trying to find the ballot?
So I just figured out the discrepancy in the link. There's no C in the TexAg link, so it's just DEV ballot. If you're still trying to use the TexAg link. I'll give you all about 30 more seconds to fill it out. All right, I just went ahead and shut that off. Apologies. I think we had tried to make it Dev C, and Dev C was already taken by TexAg, and that's why it had to be changed. It just didn't get changed on the agenda, so that's on me. With a vote of 54 in favor and 1 an abstention, she will be confirmed.
Fantastic. We'll go ahead and bring her back in. And Rebecca, are you back with us?
Yes.
Well, fantastic. It is my pleasure to let you know that you have been confirmed to serve as our next development commissioner on the executive branch of our SGA at Texas A&M. Congratulations.
Thank you.
Absolutely. And Madam Chief Justice, if you would please swear her in.
Raise your right hand and repeat after me. I state your name.
I, Rebecca Lee,
do solemnly swear
do solemnly swear
to faithfully execute to the best of my ability
to faithfully execute to the best of my ability
the duties of the office of, state your office,
the duties of the Office of Development Commission
for the Texas A&M University Student Government Association,
for the Texas A&M University Student Government Association,
to uphold the honor of the same,
to uphold the honor of the same,
at all times to protect the welfare of the student body,
at all times to protect the welfare of the student body,
and to promote good relations
and to promote good relations
between the students and those concerned with the university.
between the students and those concerned with the university.
Congratulations.
Thank you.
Congratulations, Commissioner Lee. With that, we'll now move into a period of confirmations regarding the Vice President of Student Services, and in that role, we'll be considering Daniel Igurbidi. Daniel, I believe, has called in with us, so he will not have a video, but we will be screen sharing his presentation, and I'll hand it over to SVP Mendoza.
Thank you, Speaker Mercue. Yeah, absolutely. In an effort to ensure he can be with us, regardless of Wi-Fi issues, he has called in, and we appreciate your flexibility with the screen share. And so Daniel is someone that was also blown away in his interview. You'll quickly see in his presentation that he is a Bush School student. He has both experiences at the Bush School, at A&M, but also just in life that really just impressed me. And when he talked about his passions, really believed, in my opinion, that it fell well within student services. And so I know he's going to share all that with you, but I appreciate him joining us, and I'm excited for him to share his vision. Daniel?
Daniel, you'll have 5 minutes beginning at howdy.
Howdy, everyone. My name is Daniel Igurbide, and as Erica said, I'm sorry that I'm not able to show my face today, but I am from Meridian, Texas, a very small town in the country, and for that reason, we have very bad internet reception, especially following the series of storms that we had up here. But nonetheless, I am glad to be here. I'm a first-generation college student, and I'm actually the second Aggie in my family. My brother graduated from Texas A&M about 8 years ago. As stated before, I'm at the Bush School working on a state and local policy management and administration master's degree. Some fun facts. Right after my undergrad, I was a band director for a high school for a couple of years. And during those few years, we received a performance invitation to perform at the 58th presidential inauguration ceremonies. The events that we performed for were bipartisan in nature. And so we were able to take the kids, and a band of 17 kids from a 400-person town found themselves in Washington, D.C., performing for 15,000 plus people in one of these events. And so that was just a miraculous night for everyone. Another fun fact, I love to oil paint on my free time, which is maybe once in a blue moon, but that is just something that I love to do aside from, my studies and aside from all the things that I have been involved in public service. If you're following through the slide, I'm on the second one. As you can see, the organizational experience that I have from past and present. I was chairman of the Meridian Parks and Recreation Committee. I was also a co-founder of this committee. I'm also a voting member, or a former voting member, of the Boston County CPS Board. And for 10 years, I have served in various positions, in civic duty engagement, voter registrar, grassroots, getting the vote out, getting people engaged. And I'm also a member of the Texas Music Educator Association, which is tied into my previous stint as an educator for a few years. Work experience, as I stated, I was a band director in Crawford. I've also was an interim paralegal for the Office of the County Attorney, and I've also worked for the Boston County Publishing, which is the father company for various newspapers in our area. public service experience, I served as mayor of my hometown, and I was also the council member before then. I've also been a voter registrar, involved in local and state politics. I've been a state delegate for 4 different elections and actually a national delegate for one. And I've also been involved in youth leadership. How all of this ties together to represent who I am. And if you look at all these things, if I'm an educator or if I am involved in some sort of government, it goes down to public service. I did a lot of these things doubled. I was in my undergrad and the city council at the same time. And then when I taught, I was the mayor at the same time. So I have done a lot of things at the same time. So for me, I see it all as public service. And as a teacher, I was greatly inspired by the stories of my students and the success we've had. And that inspired me to come to Texas A&M, particularly the Bush School, just because of its foundation of public service and serving others and bettering the community. And so I feel that my experience gives me the opportunity to serve this position just for the fact that I love to serve people and I love to improve the livelihood of everyone in my community. And so if we go to the third slide, in terms of values, I list 4, and these are just the way that I define them daily. Authenticity, being honest and true in your intentions to serve others. Integrity, using sound judgment to seek fairness, balance, and equal opportunity. Reverence, understanding the significance of responsibility when serving. And service, improving the livelihood and experience of your community. And my goals, I know they're very basic, so I feel that there's a lot that I still need to learn and I'm willing to learn. But my goals, looking at everything that you guys have discussed, everything that I have seen so far, is that I want to utilize and work closely with the Student Senate and Executive Cabinet to promote physical and mental health services, resources on campus. I want to better transportation. I know there's a lot of concerns regarding that. Pedestrian safety, especially at night.
Daniel,
and,
I'm actually going to have to pause you here for 1 second. We have a motion from Senator Farrow.
I move to extend the period of presenting by 2 minutes.
Seeing a second, we will move by general consent to extend the period of presentation by 2 minutes. Do I see any objections? Seeing none, we will extend the period of presentation by 2 minutes. So Daniel, you will have an extra 2 minutes, and that is the actually only 2 minutes that will be left on the clock.
Okay. All right, thank you. And the last thing here, it's to continually improve everyday life on campus. My main goal, or one of my callings in life, is to be a mentor, is to improve the livelihood of everyone around me, and that is my full intention, serving this position and getting to know the leadership, getting to know what it is that you feel is best that we need to advocate for on behalf of the university and the student body. And that's all that I have. Thank you.
Fantastic. When I move into a period of question and answer, again, if you have any questions, please utilize the raised hand tool on Zoom. Are there any questions at this time? Chair Ahmed.
Chair Ahmed, Diversity and Inclusion. So you are definitely a very experienced candidate in compared to the candidates that we do get for these different confirmations. You have a lot of life experience being like a mayor of like a whole town. So what kind of pushed you to join SGA when you've already played such a prominent role in like a local level? What kind of like pushed you to decide to do that on like a smaller collegiate level?
Sure. And this is one thing that I spoke with Eric Mendoza about, is that I feel in this time that even though I have experience, I guess greater platforms, that I feel that for me that there is no problem going to smaller platforms and mentoring by example. And that's what my main feeling is, that if I have the experience from a broader perception of things, that I want to be able to help as many people as possible, to be as strong as possible, to be stronger leaders, and hopefully encourage other people to do what I did. You know, I was very young when I did all this. I am very young. You know, all of this was done in a short amount of time. And for me, I just look back and I say, you know what, if I can enter into a platform at Texas A&M where I can offer some sort of guidance or assistance, I want to do that. And to me, that is just a calling in my life. And I felt that this is the best avenue to do that.
Thank you.
Chair Syed.
Chair Syed, Student Services. My question is, if you had to pick one goal or one main focus, what focus would that be for this school year?
To be honest, that is something that I have not thought about. Right now, just the list of goals that I have stated are the main areas of concern that I've heard from students, undergrad and in the graduate programs. But I would say my main focus would probably to lean more on the mental health services resources on campus. As we all know, the series of events that have occurred this year have taken a lot of people by surprise. And there are several medical reports that have been published stating that there will be a rise in mental health issues. And I think that what we can do is do our best to be proactive as a student body and help our students when they return to the fall. And so I guess that would be where I would lean towards the most if I had to choose one.
Thank you.
Senator Chunga Pizarro.
Senator Chunga Pizarro, Off-Campus Caucus. So I wanted to ask how you would deal with any bias that you might have in this role.
Sure. Well, for me, and I don't know how you intend the question, but for me, the way that I would see it is that my intention would be to serve the student body as a whole, not those that agree with me, not those that disagree with me. I consider myself to be a very balanced person. I do not lean heavily on one ideology or another. I feel that I'm a grounded person based off those four values that I have stated. And ultimately, with a position like this, and even working with other leaders that have different opinions and viewpoints, at the end of the day, I know that the best interest for everyone is to handle that bias by being consistent in what the end goal is for the betterment of the student body, not for myself or my own agenda.
With a minute and a half remaining in our Q&A, Chair Jeffress.
Chair Jeffress, Academic Affairs. Have you at all been made aware of the Period Project providing menstrual hygiene products for free on campus? What are your thoughts on the project?
Yes, I have, and it's very interesting because when I came across that topic, I asked almost every female that I know, family members, and I pretty much just spoke about the issue itself and what the university was doing. And before I even finished speaking, every one of these ladies said, "That is an awesome idea. That is a great idea." And even when I read that, I can tell that this was something that is needed. Obviously, I am not very familiar with everything that pertains to this issue, but I can tell you that I support this idea in the direction that is going. But I would need some more information, just to see what we can do to make that initiative better. But no, I am in support of it. I think it is great. I think that it's something that we can do to help improve our ladies on campus.
Yeah.
And with 15 seconds remaining in our Q&A, Senator Martin.
Senator Martin, Liberal Arts Caucus. Real quick, what is one experience as mayor that you've had to accomplish that would translate to this sort of job as vice president of this position?
And
Sure.
with
Well,
that, being the amount of time that we have, if you'll please keep your answer to 2 sentences.
Sure. I believe it's just being a mediator. You know, being the head of a table in the council, you're going to have very many different opinions, very different voices. And at the end of the day, you have to be the mediator, and you have to come to consensus that suits everyone to the best of your ability. And sometimes it's going to leave everyone happy, and sometimes it's not. But at the end of the day, you have to be the mediator, and you have to come to a general consensus that is best for the most people on campus.
And that will conclude the period of time of question and answer, and we'll move into a period of debate. And so, Daniel, I'm going to move you into a waiting room and then bring you right back in once debate and voting is over.
All right, thank you.
All right, Senate will now enter into a period of debate, beginning with debate against. At this time, is there any debate against? Seeing none, debate is one-sided, and that will conclude our period of debate. We'll now move into a period of voting led by Pro Tem Spur.
Howdy, y'all. That link should be open for y'all to go ahead and vote. I will give you until 9:02.
Again, that link can be found in the Slack on the agenda, and the form can also be found in the Drive. Shout out to Senator Gunya and the ops team for making that information so readily available.
Y'all have got about 30 more seconds. All right, we're going to go ahead and close that form. And it looks like with a vote of 40 in favor, 6 against, and 4 an abstention, he will be confirmed.
Make sure.
Daniel, you're back with us?
Yes, sir.
Well, fantastic. It is my pleasure to let you know that you have been confirmed to serve as our next Vice President of Student Services. I will hand you over to our Chief Justice for the swearing in.
Awesome. Thank you.
All right. Raise your right hand and repeat after me. I state your name.
I, Daniel Iguerebide,
Do solemnly swear
do solemnly swear
to faithfully execute to the best of my ability
to faithfully execute to the best of my ability
the duties of the office of, and then state your office name.
The duties of the office of Vice President of Student Services
For the Texas A&M University Student Government Association.
for the Texas A&M University Student Government Association.
To uphold the honor of the same.
To uphold the honor of the same.
At all times to protect the welfare of the student body.
At all times to protect the welfare of the student body.
And to promote good relations.
And to promote good relations.
Between the students and those concerned with the university.
Between the students and those concerned with the university.
Congratulations.
Thank you.
Congratulations, Vice President Gerberde. With that, we will now move into a period of considering the confirmation of Kara Maxwell to be our next election commissioner. SPP Mendoza, I'll hand it over to you.
Wonderful. Thank you, Speaker McHugh. So although the Election Commission itself does not sit on cabinet, they do sit within the executive branch. And so I was looking for someone to fill this role who could, regardless of what the fall looks like, that the capabilities they have will be able to move the process forward. She has served on the commission before. She is far capable of doing it. And overall, I would feel comfortable as a candidate with knowing that she would serve as the election commission if I was a candidate, and that there would be a just process and that everyone have the ability to have a fair election. And so that's the most important thing to me as a former candidate of many elections. So I'm excited for her to share her vision, and I'll turn it over to you, Kara.
And Carrie, you'll have 5 minutes beginning at howdy.
Howdy, Senate. Thank you so much, SVP Mendoza, for such a gracious introduction. So my name is Kara Maxwell, and I have the privilege of being considered for the election commissioner position for this year. I am a freshman business honors and pre-law or management pre-law track double major from Manville, Texas. I'm also pursuing a certificate in nonprofit and social innovation. Some fun facts about me: I am an ENFJ per Myers-Briggs, a proud first-generation Aggie, and a competitive shotgun shooter. So I love having the opportunity to compete for A&M in that way, and have met some incredible people doing that, and just getting plugged in on campus through SGA and that experience. So moving forward, if you are following along with my presentation, I encourage you to do so. Some experience that I have includes the time that I spent this year on our election commission as a member. You can see in some of these bullet points the specifics of tasks that I carried out and had the privilege of being a part of in order to ensure that my time on the election commission was successful and contributed to the success of the commission as a whole. So I was also a member of Fish Aid's class of 2019, where I had the distinct privilege of just hearing from some incredible speakers and learning so much about what it means to be truly a selfless leader and acting justly and moving with grace as we serve all of those around us. I am also a member and safety officer of the Texas A&M Track and Skeet team, where I have the role of just managing our track and skeet team as a whole, ensuring that everyone is abiding by our bylaws, abiding by the internal controls that we have set in place to ensure that everyone is well qualified, well trained, and ensuring the safest practices at all time, as well as organizing large fundraising events to just manage the expenses of our team. And additionally, I'm a longtime volunteer for a Houston-based nonprofit called Sky High for Kids, and have recently been hired on as a junior development officer for them. So that is an incredible opportunity that I have had to work alongside a group of many adult professionals who have very differing perspectives and ideas about how we should be combating childhood cancer and where our money should go that we raise in order to eliminate pediatric cancer ultimately in the future. So that experience has been incredible in working alongside that team and organizing many fundraising events to accomplish our mission. But most importantly of the time that I have with you guys here today is the vision and values and goals that I have for the role of election commissioner. So my just utmost value that I hold is selfless service, and how that relates to this position. The election commissioner exists to make the candidacy and election process very fair and successful for all of the parties involved. So through all actions, we should strive to create opportunities for others, opportunities for our candidates to be successful, and opportunities for our student body to engage and get involved and be educated about SGA. So with that, my vision for the role is to obviously carry out elections in a manner consistent with the Aggie Honor Code, but most importantly, utilize our resources to educate and inform our student body of the influence of SGA. So in order to accomplish this, a few of the goals that I have include increasing our campus outreach and education of the student body, incorporating greater candidate support into the mission of the commission, increasing voter turnout, and pursuing fundraising opportunities in order to provide more resources to the commission, those resources thus being provided to our student body. So I intend to accomplish these things by increasing our engagement with student organizations, sending members of the commissions to speak at meetings, and further engage with our students on a weekly basis in order to educate them about the mission of SGA and why SGA is important and why their vote matters. Voter turnout is a huge deal for the Election Commission and for SGA as a whole. So that is one way that I hope to increase that, have greater content creation and engagement on social media. I know that many of our students get their information from those platforms, so I feel every need just to really make sure that we are present on that platform and engaging with our students, maybe hosting social media contests and campaigns such that students become aware of the branches of SGA and the initiatives that our Student Government Association is sponsoring.
Cara, I am going to have to pause you for just a second to recognize Senator Feldman and a motion. Chair Feldman, excuse me.
Chair Feldman, Legislative Relations. I motion to extend the period of presentation by 2 minutes.
Seeing multiple seconds, we will move by general consent to extend the period of presentation by 2 minutes. Are there any objections? Seeing none, the period of presentation has been extended by 2 minutes. Cara, you do have the floor.
Thank you so much for that extension. So to continue, just really making of the initiatives of our Student Government Association that they're sponsoring and how those closely impact the lives of our student body. And lastly, we know that it is so easy to just touch our students and reach them with a powerful message if we distribute promotional products and have something tangible to hold on to. So through our fundraising opportunities, I hope to be able to distribute more promotional products following the lines of Gig the Vote and better informing our students of SGA and making the process of elections and candidacy a lot more popular and a lot simpler for our candidates and our student body. So that is all that I have presentation-wise. I am now open for questions.
There is open for questions, and we will now move into a 5-minute period of Q&A, beginning with Chair Ahmed.
Chair Ahmed, Diversity and Inclusion. So in our past session and the 72nd session of Student Senate, we passed the act that had a lot of changes to the role of the election commissioner. So I wanted to make sure if you were aware of those changes to the SGA code and to like the role and like what election commission does. There were a few changes to that. So if you were aware of them, what was your take on them and how you make sure to like uphold those as well, and making sure you're also upholding like the SGA code, because you only mentioned the honor code in your presentation.
Yeah, absolutely. So I'm so glad you brought that up. I actually had the privilege of helping to write that bill. And so I am very familiar with the changes that were made and passed. Really, like our biggest goal in tackling that bill and those changes as a commission was to make the process simpler for our candidates such that they are able to follow the Aggie Honor Code and the SGA Code, granting them greater time to campaign, making the rules easier to understand. We had a lot of repetition in the rules and a few rules that were kind of vague or just simply didn't make a lot of sense. So we put a lot of effort into ensuring that those were clarified. Because I did have a role in writing that bill and having input on just those changes that needed to be made all year, I see no reason why that would be an issue to uphold. And I do intend to make certain that the future election commission is very well versed in these changes and is incredibly familiar with the code, such that we can just hit the ground running in the fall and the spring and embrace elections with a lot of grace and knowledge.
I'm really glad you said that. Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Chair Syed.
Chair Syed, Student Services. Ms. Maxwell, for fall 2019, the percentage of the freshman class that voted for freshman senators and the freshman class president was less than 8%. what do you think the Election Commission can do better to raise that voter turnout specifically? And what else do you think the Election Commission can improve on this upcoming year?
Absolutely. So, obviously, as you brought up, the freshman turnout for voters was very low in the spring or in the fall. I'm sorry, total. Our percentage of votes cast was 1.5% of our entire student body. So that is astonishing. To further answer your question, the Election Commission in the previous year really put little emphasis on efforts of voter turnout. A lot of our efforts were concentrated on revision of the code to ensure that just, we could reduce our massive rules and regs just to ensure that they were easier to understand. But what the Election Commission can do, given that zero emphasis was placed and there was really no effort put forth to improve voter turnout in 2019, we can make that effort this year. The lack of effort was, I think, a huge reason why we saw minimal voting. But really what it means is just to engage on campus. When I would talk to people on campus, talk to people in class, it was the fact that they didn't understand why their vote mattered or what our SGA did that directly impacted their life. So I see no issue in the Election Commission increasing their presence on social media, on campus, and maybe even hosting a few informational events such that we are able to better reach our student body and let them know that their lives are touched every single day by the actions of each of our senators and all of our other elected and appointed officials.
Thank you.
Senator Smith.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Ms. Maxwell, I'm glad that Chair Syed brought that up because my question is along the same route with voter turnout. I was just wondering if you have any specific goals for what number you would like to see voter turnout increase by, and then if you do, would you like to see the next commissioner after you try to rebound on that and compound those numbers?
Of course, that is definitely the case. So in the fall, we only had about 800 votes cast in all of our fall elections. So it is incredibly ambitious, I think, given that 800 number, but also given that we are in an election year. I don't think it is unreasonable to strive for triple that, 2,400 plus votes. So we do see, characteristically by what I have known, a greater involvement in election years. Now in the spring, I want to say we had roughly 10,265 votes count. That number sticks out. I think that's correct. So I would love to see that increase upwards of 12,000. That would be a good about 20% mark of our student body. So that would be a nice benchmark for us to meet. And I would love for the succeeding election commissioner to just continue to pursue that mission and just allow our students to be better informed and continue to engage on campus.
Thank you.
And with that, we actually have no time remaining in our Q&A. And so we will conclude that period of Q&A and move into a period of debate and voting. For this, Ms. Maxwell, I'm going to go ahead and move you in a waiting room and then bring you back afterwards.
Thank you.
So with that, we will now move into a period of debate, beginning with debate against. Is there any debate against the candidate at this time? Seeing none, debate is one-sided, and that will conclude our period of debate, and we will move into a period of voting led by Pro Tem Spur.
Howdy, y'all. Y'all will have until, let's say, 9:20 to fill out that form, and it is open at this time. Y'all have like 30 more seconds because y'all are going really quickly on this one. All right, I'm going to go ahead and cut that off with a vote of 47 in favor and 5 in abstention. She will be confirmed.
Awesome. We'll go ahead and bring her back in. And Kara, can you hear us?
Yes, I can.
Well, fantastic. Then it is my pleasure to let you know that you have been confirmed to serve as our next election commissioner. I will hand you over to the Chief Justice for swearing in.
Raise your right hand and repeat after me. I state your name.
I, Kara Maxwell,
Do solemnly swear
do solemnly swear
to faithfully execute to the best of my ability
to faithfully execute to the best of my ability
the duties of the office of, state your office,
the duties of the office of Election Commissioner
for the Texas A&M University Student Government Association,
for the Texas A&M University Student Government Association,
to uphold the honor of the same,
to uphold the honor of the same,
at all times to protect the welfare of the student body,
at all times to protect the welfare of the student body,
and to promote good relations
and to promote good relations
between the students and those concerned with the university.
between the students and those concerned with the university.
Congratulations.
Thank you.
Congratulations, Commissioner Maxwell. With that, that will conclude our period of Executive Cabinet confirmations, and we will proceed into a motion from Chair Hind.
Howdy, Chair Hind, Rules and Regulations. I move to deviate from the agenda and move into a period of considering the confirmation of the period project subcommittee.
Seeing a second, we will move by general consent to deviate from the agenda and consider the confirmation of the chair of the period project subcommittee. What we're voting on here, y'all, we'll be voting on the chair to serve as the subcommittee chair. We're not voting on the actual subcommittee itself. That was approved and voted on by a majority of IA, the Internal Affairs Committee. And so we are voting on the chair themselves. However, the chair of the full committee that has put up the subcommittee will be introducing as well as presenting a subcommittee chair. And so with that, I will hand it over to Chair Saeed to present for Erica Pauls to be the subcommittee chair of the period project subcommittee.
Sorry. Howdy, Senate. Chair Saeed, Student Services Committee. Today I will be talking about the Period Project Subcommittee as well as our chair nominee. So I'll be discussing basically what this Period Project is, how did it start, why does it matter, and our selected chair. So the Period Project is going to be working towards and demonstrating the need for menstrual hygiene products on the Texas A&M campus for free in Texas A&M bathrooms. And so what this is it is a pilot, scroll please. Thank you. So what this is it's a pilot project, it's not going to be a permanent student senate initiative. And the goal is to provide free pads and tampons in high traffic public restrooms in our campus. The purpose is to make it permanent though, and basically demonstrate the need for this project to university administration and determine the funding needs for this project. So the goal is for the administration at the end to financially sustain this service long-term. So why does this matter? First of all, 1 in 5 women leave school early or stay home from school entirely due to the lack of period products. A Harvard study estimated that a year's worth of period products leaves a carbon footprint of 5.3 kilograms of carbon dioxide of 5.3 kilograms of carbon dioxide equivalent, as well as public health concerns, as barriers to access for menstrual products can lead to increasing risk of negative conditions. And we are Texas A&M, and Texas A&M is a Tier 1 research institution, so we should be leading by example. So here you'll see institutions that do have free menstrual hygiene products in their bathrooms. So that includes TU, Texas State, Texas A&M Corpus Christi, Texas A&M Commerce, Prairie View A&M University, as well as Blinn, and A&M does not have these products. So how this project got started was in the 71st session when two senators began proposing this project. It was the 71st session Student Services Chair Ashali Chimada, along with Tate Banks, who wrote the legislation to call for action for this issue. And Chair Chimada laid down the groundwork for this project. So some people might be wondering why there is a need to make this project a Student Senate subcommittee. First of all, we represent the power of the voice of the student body. So as the voice of the student body, we need to make sure that we bring this opportunity and reach a wider base of students across campus. This is also a way for SGA to be making change, and it aims to make tangible and meaningful change on campus. This is a great way to do that. In addition, we want to reignite the project. So the project did for some time stall during the 72nd session, but we are going to make sure that it gets reignited and we follow through with our goal to bring these products on campus. So the focus of this subcommittee is going to be outreach. So basically informing the entire student body, or to whatever extent they can, that these products are available, and finding out the need for them through surveys that have already been sent out. And we're continuously collecting data on that. The Period Project is working with three main groups. First, the SSC Services, who has already agreed to put these products in bathrooms. The Aggie Green Fund, which gave us our first initial $3,500 to fund this project. And they are funding this project because we are using Enflo products, which are sustainable products. So I'm extremely honored to have Erica Pauls considered for this role as the subcommittee chair. She's already the lead project manager for the Period Project. She's a former 3-time student senator. In addition, she's the president of the Matthew Gaines Initiative. When this project did start falling off, she helped start coordinating and bringing this project back in spring 2020. She is also a lover of chocolate-covered strawberries and is excited to get this project done. So it's time for Senate to make a tangible impact. I am now open to any questions y'all might have.
Fantastic. The presenter is open for questions. And so with that, we'll move into a period of 5 minutes for question and answer. Are there any questions at this time? Senator Martin.
Senator Martin, Liberal Arts Caucus. Thank you for the presentation. I appreciate it. One of the things that I'm wondering with this is, you're obviously talking about the need for menstrual hygiene products. I am wondering, since a lot of people at A&M, already pay a lot of money for this. Number one, is this going to increase student fees? And number two, I am still wondering, why is it the need for students to pay for something that usually is a private or a personal matter? Usually, you wouldn't ask somebody to pay for, let's say, like shaving products, those sorts of things. And I understand this might be a public health issue, but I see this as more of a personal issue, more than it is the concern of the student body.
Senator Martin, unfortunately, we can't have you rant from a question, but could you please pose your question to?
That was it. I was just wondering, how is this going to impact those people paying the fees, and is it really necessary for this to go through?
Absolutely. I think that's a great question. Obviously, I'm a male, so I personally do not use those products. I do not menstruate. However, I would like to see it as, what's the need I see having these products as a basic right for women, as it is a public health issue. One way I would compare it could be to like how we have toilet paper in our bathrooms, because it is a necessity for us students to use toilet papers when we go to the bathroom. Just like that, women need this as a necessity, as well as anyone else that menstruates, as a necessity to use these products. And it is becoming a wide university standard across the nation, as I showed with various universities providing these products for free on campus.
Chair Teague.
Chair Teague, Finance. Chair Syed, very brief question. Do you foresee this project, if it becomes permanent, taking their funding from the SGA's pool as part of the Senate? Or is this something that we're hoping that the university itself will fund? Where are we hoping, if this thing becomes permanent, where are we hoping this money is going to come from?
Thank you, Chair T. That's a great question. So, what's going on at other universities right now is kind of a national movement, where students and student groups, specifically SGAs, they start off this project to show the need for them, and it's picked up by university administration to carry it out and make sure it continues. Our responsibility is short-term, just to show that we are invested in finding the data, finding the research to see if this is a need. And if it proves to be a need for students on campus, then administration can take that data and hopefully run with it and make this a long-term final project on their side. Thank you.
Are there any other questions for the presenter? That will conclude our period of Q&A, and we will move into a period of debate, 5-minute debate. And so we will begin with debate against confirming Erica Pauls to be the chair of the period project subcommittee. Is there any debate against? Seeing none, that will conclude our period of debate, as it is one-sided. And with that, we will now move into a period of voting. And I believe Pro Tem Spur has uploaded a form for this. If you will check the Slack as well as the Drive, I believe it's in there. Pro Tem Spur, I'll hand it over to you.
Yeah, so the voting form is open now. Y'all should have access to it. Remember, we're voting on confirming Erica Pauls, so you can vote for, against, abstain, and that is open. Let's have that open until 9:33. All right, we're going to go ahead and close that form off. One thing I will mention is make sure you're only voting once. I just saw that we've been having some people vote multiple times, so make sure you only can vote once. But with a vote of 49 in favor, 2 abstentions, and 1 against, Erica Pauls has been confirmed.
Fantastic. So, Erica, I'm going to unmute you, and then Chief Justice McIntosh, I'll also unmute you. If you could swear in, please.
Raise your right hand and repeat after me. I state your name.
I, Erica Paul,
Do solemnly swear
do solemnly swear
to faithfully execute to the best of my ability
to faithfully execute to the best of my abilities
the duties of the office of, state your name,
the duties of the office of the Subcommittee Chair of the Period Project
for the Texas A&M University Student Government Association,
for the Texas A&M University Student Government Association,
to uphold the honor of the same,
to uphold the honors of the same,
at all times to protect the welfare of the student body,
at all times to protect the welfare of the student body,
and to promote good relations
and to promote good relations
between the students and those concerned with the university.
between the students and those concerned with the university.
Congratulations.
Thank you so much.
Congratulations, Subcommittee Chair Pauls. With that, we will now move on to a motion from Pro Tem Spur.
Pro Tem Spur, I motion that we deviate from the agenda to swear in the Ops Committee.
Are there any seconds to that motion? Seeing multiple seconds, we will move to swear in the Ops Committee by general consent to deviate from the agenda to do so. Again, before we do go ahead and vote on this, I just want to let you guys know the Ops Committee is something that has been selected by Pro Tem Spur to help run the operations of Senate meetings. They've already been serving in these roles. However, now that it is a complete team, we are looking to swear them in. It does not require a confirmation by code, so we're not voting on any of them. We're not voting on the team. We're simply going into a period of swearing in. And so by general consent, do we move to deviate from the agenda and swear in our operations committee? Are there any objections? Seeing none, we will move to swearing in our operations committee. Chief Justice McIntosh.
Raise your right hand and repeat after me. I state your name. Do solemnly swear to faithfully execute to the best of my ability the duties of the office of, state your office, for the Texas A&M University Student Government Association, to uphold the honor of the same at all times to protect the welfare of the student body and to promote good relations between the students and those concerned with the university.
Fantastic. Thank you, Madam Chief Justice. With that, I do want to also give the floor to Pro Tem Spur for a second here, just to introduce those individuals now that they are sworn in to serve the Operations Committee.
Yeah, I apologize. I was trying to type that in the chat and accidentally hit enter, which sent it. But just so y'all know, our Director of Operations is Miss Carrie Marbett. Our Director of Records is Miss Michaela Nassis. Our Director of IT is Bobby Dow. And our Director of Archives and our Director of Marketing is Miss Brogan Gunya. So I'm so thankful for my Ops Committee. They've been really, really helping getting all this through. I can't wait for y'all to meet them when we're all back in person.
So, well, fantastic. That will conclude the period of swearing in our Ops Committee. With that, we will now move into a period of new business. I will pause myself for a second here, though, to recognize Chair Jeffress.
I move to deviate from the agenda, moving to committee breakout.
Seeing a motion to deviate from the agenda to skip to committee breakouts. Are there any seconds? Seeing a second before we move by general consent, I would like to remind the body that this will be happening after legislation anyway. And so moving to do this first will only limit time to legislation. So by general consent, do we move to deviate from the agenda and place committee breakouts before new business? Seeing multiple objections, we'll go ahead and vote on this by raising hands. All those in favor of deviating from the agenda to move committee breakouts above new business, please raise your hand. And all those opposed from deviating, opposed to deviating from the agenda? All right, I'm going to go ahead and stop the voting there and allow you all to lower your hands. I think we do see the winning side of that vote. So we'll go ahead and leave committee breakouts where they are and proceed into that period of new business, beginning with the reading of SR 7301. Before we do this, though, I do want to say a couple of things just to let you all know as we go into our first period of considering legislation. As we go into this, with each piece of legislation that comes up, whether it's a bill or resolution, we'll allow the authors of that piece of legislation to come to the front of the room, typically when we're in coldus, and then read that resolution in its entirety, and then present a short little bit about it before answering questions. After we answer questions, the presenters answer questions, we move into a period of debate. If it's a resolution, we move straight into that period of debate and then we vote on it right afterwards. If it's a bill and it's in new business, it'll be assigned to a committee and then come back up later. If it's an open session in a bill, it will also come back up later. For any bills that have gone to committee and come back, we'll have a period of old business. But tonight, obviously, seeing as we don't have any bills that have already been considered, gone to committee and come back, we don't have a period of old business. As we go throughout all of this, I do want to let you all know that we are here for you. If you want to utilize the chat for that point of information, if you have any questions about the process, how things are going, feel free to do that. I do also want to say within our Slack, we do have a parliamentary procedure channel. So if you have any questions about how to ask a question or about how to do whatever you need to do, that channel is available to you. We'll also be very lenient if you use incorrect parliamentary procedure here at the beginning, seeing as it is a new session and we are doing this online, so there's been less opportunity for training. With that though, I'll go ahead and ask Chair Hine if she has anything to add to what I said.
I think you covered it all. I just sent in the chat that I will be monitoring the Slack, so feel free to ask questions, or if you don't feel comfortable, ask them in the group. You can private message me on Zoom or on Slack. Either way is fine. So that's all I have.
Perfect. So with that, we'll begin with the consideration of SR 7301. And I believe we have a couple of primary authors on that, Senator Viswanathan, as well as Chair Iman, Chair Ahmed. So I'll go ahead and unmute the both of you. Awesome. And then which one of you will be reading through the resolution?
We'll both be reading it. We'll just be alternating.
Okay, fantastic. And as y'all begin, right before y'all begin, I do want to point out to our Senate that you can follow along to this resolution. If you go into our 73rd drive, click e-meeting resources, then go into the 429 meeting materials, legislation, and then you'll find the piece of legislation there. So if you want to follow along as they're reading, that's where you'll do so. I will hand it over to the presenters now.
Howdy, Senator Vishwanath in the Off-Campus Caucus. So this is the APITA COVID-19 support resolution, a resolution supporting people of Asian Pacific Islander Desi American descent from increased incidents of racism, xenophobia as a result of the COVID-19 pandemic.
So whereas one, during the COVID-19 pandemic, there has been an increase in incidents of blatant racism and aggression towards people of APITA, Asian Pacific Islander Desi American descent, and Asian Americans, and
whereas two, a TMU-affiliated organization publicly tweeted a xenophobic and derogatory tweet regarding the COVID-19 pandemic, and
whereas three, the battalion published an article that spoke of some Aggies' use of derogatory and demeaning remarks towards Asian Americans and those of Asian descent, and
whereas four, terms such as Chinese virus, Wuhan flu, and the Kung flu, or similar variations attach a racial and ethnic stigma to the disease, regardless of the intention, and opens up APITA groups to be unjustly targeted, and
Whereas 5, the Department of Justice revealed a statement cautioning against the spread of misinformation that proves harmful towards ethnic minorities and individuals of APITA descent. And
whereas 6, there have been over 1,000 coronavirus anti-AAPI racism incident reports filed to the Asian Pacific Policy and Planning Council regarding coronavirus-related incidents of verbal and/or physical assault and harassment across the country just between the weeks of March 19th, 2020 to April 23rd, 2020. The Anti-Defamation League also highlights over 70 specific cases of coronavirus-related anti-Asian incidents across the U.S., with several cases in the state of Texas.
Therefore, let it be resolved. 1. The 73rd session of Student Senate condemns all racist, xenophobic, or derogatory behavior towards all people regardless of their race or ethnicity. And
let it be further resolved. 2. The 73rd session of the Student Senate recognizes that hateful speech and behavior do not represent our Aggie core values of respect, integrity, and excellence. And
let it therefore be resolved. 3. While political discourse and freedom of speech are crucial, the 73rd session of Student Senate recognizes that criticizing the Chinese government can occur without resorting to hostile rhetorics against the Asian community. And
further resolved. 4. The 73rd session of Student Senate supports all minority groups affected by negative racial and xenophobic sentiments during the COVID-19 pandemic and encourages all Aggies to utilize resources such as Stop Hate, stophate.tamu.edu initiative, or the Tell Somebody online form, tellsomebody.tamu.edu, to report any harmful or hateful activities and to reach out to counseling and psychological services, and the helpline is needed. And
let it be further resolved. 5. A copy of this resolution be sent to John Sharp, Chancellor of Texas A&M University System, Dr. Michael K. Young, President of Texas A&M, Dr. Driver, Director of Department of Multicultural Services, Dr. Daniel J. Pugh Sr., Vice President of Student Affairs, Asian President's Council, Institute for Development of Asian American Leaders, and the Battalion. And with that, that is our piece, and we are open to questions.
The presenters are open for questions at this time. The questions will work just like they have in the past, so that raised hand tool can be utilized. If you have any motions throughout anything or points of information, please put those into the chat. We will begin with Chair Teague.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Chair Teague, Finance. For the presenters, I have a question regarding the whereas number 6 statement. It states quite a lot about some reports that have happened to this Asian Pacific Policy and Planning Council, as well as highlights some Anti-Defamation League statistics. What's the relevance of those in regards to sending this to our chancellor or to our university, given that those are all nationwide and Texas represents such a small part of that? So my question is, what's the relevance of that in this report to be sent to our chancellor and president and the battalion?
So I think the importance of it is that basically, like, Aggies come from everywhere, right? We're not always here all the time. And because of that, wherever you are, you can always face such kind of racism and xenophobia. And it mostly just goes to show the impact of the virus on racism towards the APITA community within such a short time across the country. That was basically why we included those statistics.
Thank you, Senator.
And with that, I would like to let you guys all know that Chair Ahmed did lose internet connection, and so that is why we have lost her.
Well,
right, Chair Ahmed, you back?
Yes, sorry about that.
Fantastic. The presenters are still open for questions. Are there any other questions for the presenters at this time? Seeing none, that will conclude our period of question and answer, and we will now move into a period of debate on 7301. Again, debate here will be formatted like when we did confirmation, so there'll be debate against, then debate for, and we'll have the opportunity to go to up to 3 rounds as long as debate does not become one-sided. Each round of debate will be 45 seconds before we switch over to the next side. So with that, we'll begin. Also, I do want to say, excuse me here, I'll add one more thing. If you're looking to amend a piece of legislation, that is done through by debating against. You'll raise your hand and debate against, then you'll be recognized and make your motion to amend that piece of legislation at that point. So that's kind of how the amendment process works. With that, though, we'll go ahead and begin with a period of debate against. Chair T, you have the floor in debate against.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Chair Teague, Finance. Mr. Speaker, I move to amend the motion by deleting the whereas 6 statement.
The whereas 6, so the Ops Committee will please I believe there's only, oh, excuse me. There it is. All right, perfect. So whereas 6, so we'll now move into a period of debate on whether to consider this amendment or not, beginning with debate against. Is there any debate against removing the whereas 6 portion of this resolution? And Senator Hernandez, you have the floor in debate against this amendment.
Senator Hernandez, Liberal Arts Caucus, I think it's really important that we keep this amendment because people looking back, saying maybe a few years in advance are going to want to know the actual facts of what's been happening. And I think removing it does remove that context, because when you read it without that, you're not really sure of what exactly incident-wise has been going on, not only in Texas, but all across the nation. So I think it's really important that we do keep that just for context.
And do you yield the floor to anyone
I yield
else?
the floor to Chair Ahmed.
Chair Ahmed, you have the floor in debate against with 15 seconds remaining.
Chair Ahmed, Diversity Inclusion. So we included this piece, these statistics, because we think it's important to highlight that these aren't just like people believing that these are like, there have been like thousands and like few hundreds of incidents of these happening. We want to make sure we highlight that these incidents are verbal and physical. Yeah, overall, we just feel like it's necessary to highlight this factually to make sure that we're highlighting it on a state level and national level, because we have A&M students that come from all over the country and all over the world.
And I am going to have to go ahead and end the period of debate against and move into a period of debate for. Is there any debate for at this time? And again, we're debating on the amendment itself, not on the piece of legislation. Chair Teague.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Chair Teague, Finance. I agree with all of the previous speakers. I think that facts matter, and I think that these are startling statistics. The fact that anyone can be targeted for something that they had no choice in, such as their race, I think it's terrible, and I think it should be stopped. However, I don't think that as the Texas A&M Student Senate, and as we address the Texas A&M System Chancellor, as we address the Texas A&M Student Senate President, the Texas A&M University President, as well as address all of the students through the battalion, I just don't believe that the facts that we stated were necessarily relevant to the point we're trying to make. If we had access to some kind of stop hate, yes, sir. If we had stop hate statistics from Texas A&M University, I would be all for it. I just don't see the necessity of including these national statistics. Thank you.
That will conclude our period of debate for, and we will move back into a period of debate against. Is there any further debate against this amendment? Senator Hernandez.
Senator Hernandez, Liberal Arts Caucus. It is really important because we, as Student Senate, I know in previous sessions, we have taken stands against certain things that weren't pertaining specifically to Texas A&M. And so if you can look back at the 72nd session, you can definitely see that we have addressed things that weren't necessarily pertaining to A&M. Our job is to be a voice of the student body, and this is something that students have continuously called for and have expressed their opinions on. And so I just don't see how it's not relevant to include facts about what's been going on and how the APITA community has been affected by this. Like, that would basically kind of take away from a lot of the resolution. And I yield the floor to Senator Chunka Pizarro.
Unfortunately, that period of debate has run out of time, and so we will go ahead and move back into a period of debate 4. Senator Smith, you have the floor in debate debate 4.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I would just like to echo what Chair Teague said. I read this resolution, and it's a good resolution. It's something I could get behind. In fact, I wish I had gotten on board to sponsor it earlier. And I agree with all of the let it be resolved statements, but I think it's one of those situations where we've all come to the same conclusion, but we took a different route to get there. And so I agree with Chair Teague in that these statistics are national, and we're dealing with a Texas A&M issue here. And I wish that the statistics had been mentioned more on a state level. I'll probably be voting in favor of this amendment because I think Chair Teague has a good point here. I think it makes a more concise resolution if we delete that whereas statement. I would like to yield the remainder of my time to Senator Martin.
Senator Martin, Liberal Arts Caucus. Nothing new here. This is really just me echoing the previous 2 senators. We need to be specific. That's the main thing. If we're trying to pass legislation, we do not want to be vague.
And as that is time, if you'll please go ahead and finish one last sentence.
To me, I think this is what's happened is horrible, but we need to have more specific statistics as to what's happening on our campus directly. I yield my time.
And with that, we will conclude debate 4, and we'll move back into our final round of debate, beginning with debate against the amendment to remove whereas 6 from this piece of legislation. Chair Ahmed, you have the floor in debate against.
Chair Ahmed, Diversity and Inclusion. So as you guys have mentioned, like, you would like to see statistics about Texas. If you do look at that 4th link that we have placed in the 2nd sentence, it does highlight specific instances that have happened in Texas. We did use a broader statistic just because because COVID and all of the anti-Asian sentiment has happened in such a short time. This was the data we were able to collect nationally and regarding Texas specifically. If we were able to find more Texas-related centered statistics, we would have placed those in there. But through that 4th link, you can see that that was a way to highlight some of the certain instances that happened in our state. And these areas can impact our students because while they're not at Texas A&M right now, they could still be impacted in their communities in Texas, or if they're in California, in New York, and in these different states from home. So they could be impacted in these different ways, and setting that precedent of showing it's happening nationwide. So this shows our students who are currently nationwide during this COVID pandemic that we understand these things are happening and we stand with them, and we are completely against these actions no matter where they currently are.
There, as that does conclude the debate against for that round. Before we move into debate 4, though, I would like to recognize Chair Syed with a motion.
Chair Syed, Student Services Committee, I move to amend the amendment by striking this section and putting talking specifically about cases that do result that have occurred in Texas, so that it's more local and statewide. So we consider those things. So specifically, including the stabbing of 2 Asian children in Texas due to the fear of coronavirus and racism against Asians.
And I will have to default to Chair Hind here, just to make sure we get the procedure correct. As we're considering an amendment, can we go ahead and consider another amendment here on the floor?
Yes, so an amendment is an amendment to the motion. That's a first rank amendment. And so then an amendment to an amendment is a second rank motion, but you cannot amend an amendment to an amendment, if that makes sense. So this amendment to the amendment is fine, but no one can amend the amendment to the amendment that's on the floor now. Wow, that's a tongue twister.
I challenge anyone to say amendment more times in one sentence. So with that, if you'll please go ahead and restate that amendment so we can get that into writing.
My amendment is to say that, to state, I will type it out, but it will be.
I am going to actually have to pause you here, and we're going to go to a point of information from Senator Smith.
I'm sorry, Mr. Speaker. I didn't know you were going to have Chair Syed clarify. That's what my point of information was going to be asking.
All right, perfect. Thank you. All right, Chair Syed.
My amendment is that in late March there was the stabbing of 2 Asian children outside of a supermarket as a result of racism and discrimination against Asians due to COVID-19 fears. I'll be typing that.
And just to be clear, so the amendment to the amendment will be taking that line and putting it in where right now we have the entirety of whereas 6. So it will still be whereas 6, but it will only be that line that Chair Syed has proposed. And so with that, we'll now begin debate on the amendment to the amendment. Is there any debate for Chair Hine? Let me make sure we're doing this correct here. Do we go ahead and debate on that secondary motion?
Yes. So this amendment to the amendment is debatable. You cannot amend it, and it requires a majority vote.
Perfect. So we'll go ahead and begin with that debate, beginning with debate against the amendment to the amendment. I would like to recognize Senator McCrossan.
Crossan on campus. I believe, I may be wrong, but I believe a second rank amendment needs a second, and that did not receive a second.
You are correct. I do stand out of order. Are there any seconds on this amendment to the amendment? Seeing multiple seconds, we will now move on to that period of debate. Thank you for the point of order there. Is there any debate against this amendment to the amendment? Seeing none, debate is one-sided, and so now we will move to vote by a show of hands. Again, this is Zoom raise hands. All those in favor of amending the amendment so that it reads, in whereas 6, in late March, there was a stabbing of 2 Asian children outside of a supermarket out of racism and discrimination to Asian Americans as a result of COVID-19. All those in favor of amending the amendment to take out whereas 6 to read that, go ahead and raise your hand. Go ahead and lower your hands. All right, and all those in favor, all those against the amendment to the amendment, please raise your hand. All right, go ahead and lower your hands. And Chair Hine, this is a majority vote. Am I correct in that?
Yes.
All right, well, by a majority of 21 to 20, we have amended this amendment to read. In late March, there was a stabbing of 2 Asian children outside of a supermarket out of racism and discrimination to Asian Americans as a result of COVID-19. And so now we will move back into the consideration of the amendment, the original amendment. So now we're considering whether or not to replace what is currently in whereas 6 with this new amendment that we have just amended, if that makes sense to everyone out there. So we'll go back into a period of debate here, beginning with debate against this amendment. Again, this amendment is to replace the current whereas 6 with the new line here. Is there any debate against? Senator Hernandez.
Senator Hernandez, Liberal Arts Caucus. I do believe that this amendment is actually too specific. I think that as a student senate, we represent the student body as a whole, and we represent everywhere they come from, which includes everywhere across America. This resolution was not written in response to that specific incident. This resolution was in response to multiple incidents across America. And so I think by making that amendment, you're kind of diminishing why the resolution was written in the first place. And I yield my time to the floor.
The floor has been yielded to, and we will now go into a period of debate 4. Is there any debate 4? Senator Martin.
Senator Martin, Liberal Arts Caucus. I think that this amendment's really important. And to counter the
I'm
point,
actually going to have to go ahead and pause you there, Senator Martin. Chair Ahmed.
Chair Ahmed, Diversity Inclusion. I would just like to clarify, as the whereas 6 has now been changed, are we currently debating on this new whereas 6?
So we are currently debating on whether or not to replace what was whereas 6, what is whereas 6, with the new amendment that was proposed originally by Chair Teague and then updated by Chair Syed. So if we vote for this amendment, we are voting to take out what was currently whereas 6 and replace it with the new statement within whereas 6. Does that answer your point of inquiry?
Yes. Thank you.
Zach, so this is on kind of a rules end. So I guess point of information. Fawaz, was your amendment to, okay, so as for a first rank amendment that we witnessed, it was to delete the whereas 6. So the way that Fawaz's second rank amendment pertained to the first would be adding on to whereas 6. And so it would be, how do I explain this? I'm trying to figure out how to put this in a way that's like comprehensive for everyone. So it would have the amendment as well as what Fawaz is stating. Does that make sense? By the way that he had worded it, that's how I took it, and that's how like it would have been structured, but I could have misinterpreted.
And Chair Said, I do want to confirm with you, was the goal to add that sentence to whereas 6 or to replace whereas 6 with this by amending Chair Teague's amendment?
One of the motion amendment was to replace whereas 6. However, I have a point. I'm sorry, I have 5 other kids in this house. So I actually want a point of information. If I want to adjust this amendment to kind of combine both ideas, how would I do that?
So since your original intent was to replace whereas 6 with this, and we've already voted on this, I believe since we already had an amendment on the amendment, we'll have to vote on this current amendment and then propose another amendment to change this piece again.
So, okay, so since this
Correct.
back to being an amendment to the motion, there can actually be an amendment to this amendment.
Okay, since it's no longer two-tiered, it's back down to one.
Yes.
All right, fantastic. All right, so if you'd like to propose an amendment, you are still recognized.
I motion for this amendment to be replaced by the following line.
Right. And so now we are considering the amendment to the amendment, which would make whereas 6 overall read, in late March, there was a stabbing of 2 Asian children outside of a supermarket in Texas due to racism and discrimination towards Asian Americans as a result of COVID-19. Other similar incidents of violence and discrimination have taken place across the state of Texas in the United States. So I just want to clarify before we do proceed, Chair Syed, the goal is to take this new amendment, replace the current amendment, which would replace whereas 6 in its entirety.
Yes, Speaker McHugh. Thank you.
Awesome. So we'll now consider that amendment to the amendment, and we'll go into a round of debate, starting with debate against. Seeing no debate against, that will conclude our period of debate. And we will now move into a period of voting on this amendment to the amendment. Again, we're going to go ahead and vote with the raised hand format. So all those in favor of amending the current amendment to read, in late March, there's a stabbing of 2 Asian children outside of a supermarket in Texas due to racism and discrimination towards Asian Americans as a result of COVID-19. Other similar incidents of violence and discrimination have taken place across the state of Texas and the United States. All those in favor of changing that amendment to read that way, please raise your hand. Lower your hands. And all those against? In hands by a vote of 21 to 19. We do replace the original amendment with this new wording. And so now we will go back into a consideration period for this new amendment, and we'll begin with a period of debate against. Right. And I do want to go ahead and lower hands here all the way just to make sure we're getting people who'd like to speak. All right, and Chair Feldman, you have debate and you have the floor and debate against this amendment.
Chair Feldman, Legislative Relations. Personally, to me, just looking at the original statement, I saw nothing really wrong. It addressed a statistic that we've utilized in the past in Student Senate. And I feel like just by throwing in a specific incident, it doesn't kind of do justice to the whole situation. And I think by having the full statistic by the Anti-Defamation League, really helps this this resolution. And I give the floor, or give the time to Chair Ahmed.
Chair Ahmed.
Chair Ahmed, Diversity and Inclusion. I again agree with what Chair Feldman said. This new amendment kind of diminishes the meeting because it's only highlighting one incident when we overall want to highlight how this is happening all over the country, because as to repeat, we have A&M students all over the country now.
And that will conclude that first period of debate against this amendment, and we will now move into a period of debate for the amendment. Do I see any debate for? Senator Martin.
Senator Martin, Liberal Arts Caucus. A quick point that I'd like to bring up from the previous argument against it is that we're focused on the A&M Senate and for A&M students here. I'm not saying it's not important what happens in other parts of the country, but we're focusing on how it affects us directly at Texas A&M in College Station. So overall, I think it's important to make it as specific. I think it drives home a point. If it's close to home at College Station, it's much more impactful than something that's happening in New York or in California or wherever else. This actually shows that it can be very personal at home. I yield my time.
And as that is time, we will actually go ahead and conclude the period of debate 4. Again, I do want to reiterate, if you have a debate, as we're in different periods, please raise your hand. Since this is a debate, the way it works is once somebody has the floor, if your hand is raised, they are welcome to yield that floor if there's any time remaining to you with your raised hand. Also, before we go into this next period, I do want to allow Chair Hine to clarify some things.
Chair Hine, Rules and Regulations. I'm getting a lot of text messages on the side, so I'm just going to go ahead and clarify for everyone. So right now, we are voting on the amendment to amend the Whereas 6. And so the original Whereas 6 still stands right now, but if we pass this amendment, we will change Whereas 6. So just to clarify and make sure that everyone's on the same page.
Thank you, Chair Hine. We will now resume, beginning back to that next debate period with a period of debate against Senator Trosclair.
Speaker. Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Senator Trosclair on Campus Caucus. I agree with both my friends, Chair Feldman and Chair Ahmed. I think, and my concern is I think it's important to highlight the more statistical elements. And I think by having the element of the stabbing attached to that, I'm concerned we could create the implication that students at A&M could be related to that. And so I want to be very clear. I think the statistics that were originally talked about are imperative because they demonstrate the issue around the country. We all know that after tragedies and during tragedies, people make very bad decisions. That's a natural result of humans being humans. It's unacceptable behavior and we have to confront it. I think highlighting the national statistics are important. I think this debate itself is becoming slightly unnecessary. Let's stick with the original statistics and the original intent of the legislation. I yield my time to the floor.
That does conclude that of debate against, and we'll be back into a period of debate for this amendment. If you'll please lower your hands if you are in debate against. And Senator Smith, you have the floor in debate 4.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Senator Smith, College of Ag and Life Sciences Caucus. I would just like to echo what a couple of other senators have said. I will be voting for this amendment. And I think it's important for all senators to remember that whenever our students review what we pass as this body, they are going to review what we decided to resolve and not which statistics and instances we used to get there. And with saying that, I would like to yield the remainder of my time to Chair Syed.
Chair Syed, Student Services. Thank you, Senator Smith. I'm for this amendment because while the current Whereas 6 is also good at highlighting the statistics, this amendment focuses on exactly a specific instance within our state of Texas so that students and the student body knows what.
And if you'll finish your last sentence.
And so I believe that this amendment can, again, make it more personal and addresses the national circumstance as well.
That will conclude that round of debate. We'll move into our third and final round of debate on this amendment, beginning with debate against. Senator Marufo.
Senator Marufo, Liberal Arts Caucus. I think the amendment, how it was before, similar as Chair Ahmed, Chair Feldman, Senator Trosclair, it was great the way it was before. I just wanted to say that our Aggie core values do not only are applicable to Aggies. We are supposed to be respectful and targeted to every person that we come across, not just Aggies, not just because they came to A&M. Every human being is worthy of respect, and I think that that's what the amendments, or whereas 6 did before. I'd like to yield my time to Senator Viswath.
She's muted.
Sorry. Senator Vishwanath off campus. To Senator Martin's point, we have addressed issues at A&M, occurrences that have occurred with other whereases, and the importance of using whereas 6 is to address the national urgency and the importance of why this is occurring right now and how this is relevant to us as a country. Aggies make up we're not just from Texas.
If
we're
you'll
from
finish
everywhere.
your last sentence, please.
And the Anti-Defamation League website also includes cases that are found within Texas as well.
With that, we'll now move into our final period of debate 4. If you have any debate 4, please raise your hand. Seeing no debate 4, that will conclude our period of debate, and we will move on to a period of voting on the following amendment to change whereas 6 so that it reads, in late March, there was a stabbing of 2 Asian children outside of a supermarket in Texas due to racism and discrimination towards Asian Americans as a result of COVID-19. Other similar incidents of violence and discrimination have taken place across the state of Texas and the United States. And we'll now go into a period of voting on that. And so the way we're going to vote is we have a general ballot that can be found at text.ag/general ballot. And I believe that's been put into the Slack as well. And it can also be found on the drive from what I understand. And again, what we're voting on is the amendment itself, not on the piece of legislation. And Pro Tem Spur, if you'll please keep us updated as we go throughout voting and let us know when that closes.
Y'all will have until 10:23.
So the link should be found in the Slack. Pro Tem Spur, would you like to have
It's now in the drive under the 429 meeting materials folder.
We'll have just a couple seconds more on this voting.
All right, I'm going to go ahead and cut that off with a vote of 35 against, 9 in favor, and 6 in abstention. That amendment fails.
So that amendment does fail. If you'd please go ahead and remove that from the document, whereas 6 will remain the same. We will go back into a period of debate on the piece of legislation as a whole, again, beginning back into that period of debate. Before we do that, I would like to recognize Senator Bone with a motion.
Senator Bone of the Mays Business Caucus. I motion to amend the resolution. Every time it says APITA, change that to Asian.
Are there any seconds to that motion? Seeing multiple seconds, we will now consider an amendment to change every use of APITA within this resolution to the word Asian. We'll begin with a period of debate on the amendment, starting with debate against. Senator Marufo.
Senator Marufo, Liberal Arts Caucus. I think APITA is used because that term is a little more encompassing in terms of peoples of the community that are being targeted. I'm sorry, I'm gonna be honest, but I accidentally clicked the raise hand when I did not mean to. So if anyone else has debate against, but I'm also against that amendment. But my thoughts, I'm sorry, are escaping me. So I'll yield my time to whoever else has their hand raised.
So seeing there is one hand raised if you'd like to yield.
Yes, I'd yield my time to Chair Ahmed.
Chair Ahmed, Diversity and Inclusion. I would just like to specify that when the bill authors created this resolution, the use of APITA was used just because it is more encompassing and a little bit more inclusive of different backgrounds and maybe some backgrounds that may still be discriminated against. So I just want to clarify that.
Do you yield?
I yield my time to Senator Viswanath.
Senator Vishwanath off campus. The reason why we used APITA is because it's the terminology that Texas A&M is trying to
and if you'll finish the sentence.
And it is the most encompassing and inclusive Asian American term that we can use and have been currently trying to use.
And that will conclude our period of debate against, and we'll move into a period of debate for. Is there any debate for? Again, if you do have debate, please raise your hand over here using the feature in Zoom instead of utilizing the chat. Senator Martin, you have the floor.
Point of order, since Chair Hine, Rules and Regulations, since Senator Bone made the amendment, he is actually entitled to first debate.
All right, well, fantastic. Those are the rules. And so Senator Bone, you do have the floor.
Senator Bone, Mays Business Caucus. As an Asian immigrant myself, when I looked at this resolution, I had no idea what it was. I had to go read line by line, and I've never known or heard the word APITA. I find it, if anything, alienating for the Asian peoples, considering I've never been called APITA. I don't like that term. I like being called Asian. I think Asians are known as Asians. And APITA just doesn't make sense to me. I yield my time to Senator Martin.
Senator Martin, Liberal Arts Caucus. I would like to echo that point, because when we're talking about APITA, most people don't know what that is. People know people of Asian origin. And I think just even talking with his previous point, I mean, most of these people want to be called Asian, and most of these have been committed against Chinese Americans, people of that descent. I understand that it's more inclusive to say Pacific Islander, but let's be more specific. These are mostly people who are of Chinese descent who are getting discriminated against, not as many people who are in a descent of like the Philippines or whatever else. With that, I yield my time.
And that will conclude the period of debate for, and we'll move back into a period of debate against. Senator Tran.
Senator Tran, Health Science Center Caucus. As an Asian American myself, it's not anybody's responsibility to, well, it is everybody's responsibility to learn other terminology. APITA is not a new term. To Senator Martin's point of, oh, sorry, I lost my track. I personally think that the APITA term is very inclusive. I am, well, so the racism that's towards Asians, it's not specifically towards Chinese people. A lot of people, whenever you look at an Asian person, you don't know if they're Chinese, they're Korean, they're Japanese. The racism is very broad and it's not specific towards any Asian person. And I yield my time to Senator Miles.
Senator Miles.
Yes, so in reference to what Senator Bond was saying, APITA, it stands for, if you didn't know, Asian Pacific Islander Desi American. It's also the term that the Department of Multicultural Services uses to address Asian groups on campus, or those of Asian descent. It's also an inclusive term used to describe people that derive from the continent of Asia and that culture, with the exclusion of Russia. Also, I find it quite ironic that Senator Bond
last sentence, please,
is addressing this issue, considering he was a part of that organization that made those remarks and is one of the contributing persons.
And that will conclude that period of debate against. We'll move back into a period of debate for. Senator Bone.
I would like to first begin Senator Bone of May's Business Caucus by saying I did not contribute.
Pause you for a second, Chair Teague.
Chair Teague, Finance. Mr. Speaker, this question may not be pointed directly at you, but instead at the those that introduced this bill. They'll have to forgive my ignorance. If they could just fill us in very quickly on what Desi American is. I'm not very familiar with what that is. So if they wouldn't mind just filling us in on that, thank you.
Yes, if he could answer that briefly.
Yeah, so Desi American usually encompasses people who are of Asian descent but are not of like Far East Asian descent. So that usually applies to people who are Indian, Pakistani, Bangladesh, sometimes Sri Lanka. So it's usually those other Asian groups that aren't directly like when people think of the image Asian, but sometimes they are passing of these other groups as well at times. So overall, the use of APITA is to make sure we are including all of these Asian groups, whether it's Far East, Southeast Asia, and so forth, because overall the incidents that are happening are to Asians collectively and not a specific region. So that's why we use that term, to make sure we're including those Far East Asians, those South Asians, and so forth.
And we will resume with debate 4, Senator Bone. Oh, I will actually have to pause you one more time with a motion from Pro Tem Spur.
Pro Tempore Spur, I have a motion to move all of these resolutions and amendments to send this resolution to the Diversity and Inclusion Committee for these amendments, because we do have quite a lot of the agenda to get through tonight, and it already is 10:32, and I want to be respectful of everyone's time and also respectful of amending what needs to be amended as well.
Seeing multiple seconds, Chair Hine, please make sure we follow the rules here. Can we go ahead and send this to committee if we're still considering an amendment?
Yes, so since she used the terminology motion and its amendment, we can go ahead and send it to a committee.
Fantastic. Seeing multiple seconds, we will move by general consent to send this resolution along with any amendments currently in process to the Diversity and Inclusion Committee. Are there any objections? Seeing an objection, we will now vote on whether or not to go ahead and move to take this agenda, take this resolution and put it into committee. Just to explain, if it is to go into committee, the way that it would work is in the next committee meeting that the Diversity and Inclusion Committee has, they would discuss it there. If it passes from that committee, it will come back up in front of the Senate to be considered at that time with any amendments or further changes made within committee. So now we're going to go ahead and vote on whether or not to send a resolution and its amendments to the committee. Please raise your hand. And I would like to remind Senate that as it is already 10:30, we do have to move through our agenda as much as possible. Our advisors are being very lenient with us, but technically our time does end at 10:30. Lower your hands. And all those opposed? And lower your hands. So by a vote of 23 to 15, Chair Hahn, I do want to confirm that this is just a majority vote and not a 2/3 vote.
Yes, it's just a majority.
So then by majority, we have voted to carry this resolution and all of the amendments currently being considered to the Diversity and Inclusion Committee. So we will now move on into the next part of our agenda. Give me 1 second here. So as we are moving on here, I do want to address the question in the chat. Since it is past 10:30 and we are online, you will still have to submit an absence request saying that you had to leave early, and that will be considered by IA, but it is not an automatic excused absence. It does still have to be voted on, but you do have that form there if you'd like to go ahead and if you need to go ahead and leave for any reason. The chair would like to entertain a motion to table any further pieces of legislation that we currently have in order that we can bring them back up at a later meeting. Are there any motions for that right now?
Zachary, I'm going to hop in a second. So Chair Hine, Rules and Regulations, that will actually be a motion to postpone definitely. And so how that's made is I move to postpone the rest of the legislation for this meeting definitely to the next meeting.
Thank you, Chair Hine. Do I see any motions at this point? Yes, Senator Sion.
Thank you, Speaker. Senator Siani, Off-Campus Caucus. I move to postpone all new business legislation definitely until the next meeting.
Are there any seconds? Seeing no seconds but multiple objections, that motion does fail, and we will continue on to the rest of our agenda, beginning with SR 7302. If the presenters of this, the authors of this legislation would like to present, go ahead.
Hey, Zach, pause really quick. I'm trying to find what the vote is for postpone definitely, because there was a second to it.
So
It was.
Since we had already moved on before the second came through, we are going to go ahead and move on to the next piece of legislation. And so we are not going to stop and go back to that. I do realize this is online and it's hard knowing when things came through. But seeing as there was a pretty substantial break before there was a second and there were multiple objections, we are going to go ahead and move on. So we'll now move on to SR 7302. If the presenters would like to go ahead and read through the resolution. I believe that's Senator Bone and Chair Said.
Senator Bone of the Maize Business Caucus. This is the Aggies Facing Financial Hardship Resolution, a resolution in support of students of Texas A&M University that have fallen on financial hardship due to the outbreak of COVID-19, introduced by me and Senator Chair Syed. Whereas one, as a result of the COVID-19 pandemic in the past 5 weeks, jobless claims in America have increased by 26 million. And whereas since March, jobless claims in the state of Texas have increased by 1.3 million. And whereas in response to the financial hardships caused by the impact of COVID-19, the Texas A&M Foundation is directing the Texas A&M University Disaster Relief Fund to aid Aggie students and employees who are struggling to find alternative housing, facing food insecurity, or lost wages. Therefore, let it be resolved, the 73rd session of the Student Senate stands in support of all Aggies who are struggling with financial hardship due to the outbreak of COVID-19. And let it further be resolved, the 73rd session of Student Senate extends tremendous gratitude to the generous donors of the Texas A&M COVID-19 Disaster Relief Fund. And let it further be resolved, the 73rd session of Student Senate encourages Aggies to use resources provided to the student body by Texas A&M Disaster Relief Fund, with a link to the website right there, which includes financial aid packages, short-term loans, emergency tuition and fees loans, information on food pantries, connection to government assistance, and general information on student assistance, and encourages any questions to be directed to the Office of Financial Aid. Let it further be resolved, a copy of this resolution be sent to Tyler, I don't know how to pronounce that last name, I'm sorry, President of Texas A&M Foundation, and Dr. Daniel J. Pugh Sr., Vice President of Student Affairs and the Battalion. I yield my time to Chair Syed.
I think that just covers it all. I think this is really important right now, especially when there are a lot of students getting laid off and there's a lot of financial insecurity between Aggies.
We will now move into a period of question and answer. Are there any questions for the presenters? SVP Mendoza.
Howdy, SVP Mendoza. I love this piece. Would you be open to someone amending it to say Tyson Vocal, not Tyler?
Of course.
Perfect.
Senator.
Thank you all.
Are there any other questions for the presenters? Seeing none, that will conclude our period of question and answer, and we will now move into a period of debate on this resolution, beginning with a period of debate against. Is there any debate against this resolution? Senator Merritt.
Hello, Jack Merritt, On Campus Caucus. I'd like to amend the legislation to add myself as a sponsor.
Are there any seconds? Seeing a second, we will now consider to move forward by general consent to add Senator Jack Merritt to the list of sponsors on this piece of legislation. Are there any objections? Seeing none, Senator Merritt will be added as a sponsor. Chair Syed.
Chair Syed, Student Services, I move to allow any senator that wants to sponsor this legislation to do so.
So the way that would be handled is if you have the floor and debate against, you can move to amend and add yourself as well as anyone else who's interested to the piece of legislation. So I will go ahead and recognize you and debate against, and then you're able to make a motion.
Thank you. I move to allow anyone that wants to add themselves to this legislation to do so, to support the legislation as a sponsor.
And I do see a second as well as an objection, but before that, I do want to address the point of inquiry from Senator Marufo. Senator Marufo.
Okay, Senator Marufo, Liberal Arts
Senator
Caucus.
Marufo.
Yes. Oh, Senator Marufo, Liberal Arts Caucus. My question, point of inquiry. My question is: can an author of the legislation propose an amendment? Just because I know in the 72nd session that was something that popped up, and I just want to make sure that this amendment or the intent of the amendment is legitimate.
Yes, Chair Hahn.
Yes. So the author of a resolution, bill, or act are allowed to make amendments per Robert's Rules of Order.
And so with that, we will move back into considering this amendment. Seeing multiple seconds as well as an objection, we will move to vote by a show of hands. Again, what this is allowing anyone to do is there is a form on the drive, a sponsorship form. If you fill out that form and this amendment has been made on a piece of legislation, then you can be added that way instead of amending it multiple times for every single senator who would like to add themselves as a sponsor. So that's what this amendment is doing. So all those in favor of this amendment to add any senator who would like to as a sponsor on this piece of legislation, please raise your hand. And lower your hands. And all those opposed? Seeing none, that amendment does pass, and I would like to recognize Chair Rodriguez in a point of inquiry.
Chair Rodriguez, Constituency Affairs, College of Engineering, just a quick question. Would this be considered legislation 73-01 or 02?
-02.
Okay, thank you.
Mm-hmm. All right, and so with that, we will now move back into debate on the resolution as a whole, beginning back in that debate against. I do want to also say in the chat, if you do have an amendment to make, please gain the floor by raising your hand, and then you'll be recognized, and at that point, you can make your motion to amend. Chair Feldman.
Chair Feldman, Legislative Relations. I move to change and let it be resolved for. The foundation's president's name is actually Tyson Vocal, not Tyler.
All right. Are there any seconds to that motion? Seeing multiple seconds, we will now consider the amendment to change Tyler to Tyson. Is there any debate against this amendment? Seeing none, debate is one-sided, and we will move to, by general consent, amend this piece of legislation so that the name Tyler is changed to Tyson. Are there any objections? Seeing none, that amendment does pass, and we will move back into debate against this resolution as a whole. Is there any further debate against? Seeing none, we'll now move into a period of debate 4. Is there any debate 4? Seeing none, debate is one-sided, and that will conclude our period of debate. And we will move into a period of voting on Resolution 73-02. I believe the voting link is in the same place as you can find the resolution on the drive. So underneath e-meeting materials, 42920, and then SR 7302 ballot. So go ahead and take a second here to fill out that ballot, and we're voting on the resolution as a whole. And as we are all voting, I do want to take this time to remind Senate that we did only get an extension for this meeting to 11 o'clock tonight. And since we do only have an extension to 11 o'clock, this meeting will conclude at 11 o'clock, regardless of whether we've made it through our agenda. And so to make sure that the next resolution does come up on our previous or our next agenda at our next meeting, I would like to recommend that after voting has finished on this resolution, that somebody does move to definitely postpone the SR 7303 to our next meeting.
All right, y'all, I'm going to go ahead and close that form off in the interest of time. With a vote of 40 in favor and 3 in abstention, that resolution passes.
All right, well, SR 7302 does pass, and I would like to recognize Senator Smith with a point of inquiry.
Yes, Mr. Speaker, thank you. Senator Smith, College of Ag and Life Sciences Caucus. I was just wondering if you think it would be possible for us to go ahead and try passing the period project resolution by unanimous consent, or if it would be better to wait until the next meeting and do it all the way.
So I would recommend, seeing as it is an entire resolution, that we go ahead and move it to next meeting, because we 8 minutes remaining in this meeting before we do have to go ahead and shut it off as per our advisors. So my recommendation is that we go ahead and move that to the next meeting.
Thank you.
And then I'm going to go ahead and entertain the point of inquiry from Chair Syed.
Chair Syed, Student Services, can we attempt to see if this bill will pass or legislation will pass unanimously?
Again, we definitely can. Anything is the prerogative of the Senate as we move forward, but my recommendation is that we go ahead and wait. There is a likelihood, as we do have a couple of more executive confirmations to get through that weren't ready for tonight, as well as Associate Justice confirmations. There is a possibility we do have a special session before our first summer meeting. So know that this piece of legislation will be able to come back up soon. With that, I would like to recognize Chair Teague with a motion.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Chair Teague, Finance. Mr. Speaker, I move to postpone definitely Senate Resolution 73-03, the period project resolution, till our next meeting.
Seeing an objection as well as multiple seconds, we will now go ahead and vote on whether to postpone definitely SR 7303 to the next meeting. Please by a show of hands. So we'll begin with all those in favor of postponing definitely the period project resolution. Lower your hands. And all those opposed? And by a majority vote, we have decided to send SR 7303 to our next meeting agenda by postponing it definitely. That will conclude our period of new business, and we will move into a period of open session. Before that, though, I would like to entertain the motion from Chair Hein.
I withdraw my motion. I made it too early.
All right, that motion has been withdrawn, and we will move into a period of open session. Are there any pieces of legislation for open session? If so, raise your hand. Chair Feldman.
One second here. I have the Aggie Strong resolution to bring to open session.
All right. Have you placed that into the open session folder on Drive? In that motion, I believe does need a second to bring the piece of legislation to open session. Seeing multiple seconds, we will now move forward with discussing the resolution from the motion. Pro Tem Spur, if you would please explain to the Senate where to find.
Yeah, it is in the Drive in the open session folder. And I'm currently going back to the Drive to tell you exactly where that is. It will be in the 73rd Student Senate. Legislation. Nope. It should be an open session, and I will make sure it's there. It's in the 429-20 meeting materials open session folder. I apologize.
So if senators go into e-meeting resources, go to 429 meeting materials. And then the open session folder. And if the authors would like to go ahead and read through this resolution.
Yeah, so basically this has been, there's a motion, I'm gonna stop.
Yes, see your motion from Senator Oldhag.
Hi, seeing that we are pressed for time, I move to consider the resolution as read.
Are there any seconds? Seeing multiple seconds, what this means is basically that somebody does not have to read through the entirety of the resolution before we move on to considering it. Are there any objections? Seeing none, that motion does pass, and we will move on to considering this piece of legislation as read. I believe the presenters still do have the floor in presentation.
Yeah, and with that, we'll yield our time to questions.
Presenters are open for questions. Are there any questions at this time?
Awesome. I think
Seeing none, that will conclude our period of question and answer, and we will now move into a period of debate, beginning with debate against. Is there any debate against? Again, if you do have an amendment that has to be brought through debate against, Chair Ahmed.
Howdy, Chair Ahmed, Diversity and Inclusion. I motion to be added as a sponsor and to have anyone else who's also interested in being a sponsor to do so.
Are there any seconds to that motion? Seeing multiple seconds, are there any objections to moving by general consent to add Chair Ahmed as well as any who are interested in fill out the form on the drive to this piece of legislation as a sponsor? And seeing no objections, that motion, that amendment does pass. Chair Ahmed, as well as any other people who are interested in fill out the form on the drive, will be added as sponsors to this piece of legislation. We will now move back into a period of debate against this resolution as a whole. Is there any debate against? Senator Farrell.
Engineering Caucus. I move to amend letter for review results number 6 to strike down the word that it says eminent with and write the word imminent, that I believe is the one that it was intended to be.
All right. Pro Tem Spur, point of information.
Pro Tem Spur, I just want to state that actually is grammatically how that word is supposed to be used, because eminent, like there's two different versions, like affect and effect. That's the correct terminology that needs to be in that sentence.
And I will also add to that, as part of our code, grammatical errors and such can be fixed after the resolution has already been passed when things are being added to the code or being sent out. I believe we do still have a motion though. Are there any seconds to the motion? Seeing no seconds, that motion does fail. Senator Farrell, you do still have the floor in debate against.
I yield the time to the floor. Thank you.
The floor has been yielded to you, and we'll now move into a period of debate 4. Is there any debate for this resolution? Seeing no debate 4, debate is one-sided, and that will conclude our period of debate, and we will move into a period of voting. The meeting will be ending as soon as the period of voting is finished. And that ballot can be found again underneath meeting resources in the open session folder after you go through for 2920. And then if you click that ballot, you'll be able to vote there. The link is also posted in the Slack. And if it's no longer accepting responses, you should be able to refresh. Pro Tem Spur, I believe there are still some issues if you'd like to address those.
Yeah, it's open now. I apologize. I was renaming the legislation so they would know it was 7304, but is that it will be named as 7304. And I'm gonna give y'all like 30 seconds to vote so we can end quickly.
If there's still any trouble accessing that form, please let us know.
All right, I'm gonna go ahead and close that off in the interest of time with 30 in favor. That passes.
That resolution does pass. I would now like to recognize Chair Hine with a motion.
Howdy, Chair Hine, Rules and Regulations. I move to strike committee breakouts from the agenda, as well as move committee reports and executive reports to email and move into a period of closing roll call.
Seeing multiple seconds, are there any objections to the motion to strike committee breakouts from the agenda, as well as move committee reports and executive reports to email format? Seeing no objections, that does pass. We will now move into a period of closing roll call.
Your form is open. Go for it. And Brogan just sent it in the Slack. It's tx.ag/429 closing.
That can also be found in the drive under those e-meeting resources in the 429 meeting folder. Once you have filled that out, that will conclude our meeting, and you are welcome to leave once you have filled that form out.
Please make sure to check your emails for committee reports.
Yes, beat the hell out of finals, of course. Good luck to everyone still going through that. Have a fantastic night.